Hey, boys and girls. So
Hey,
I thought it'd be worth trying to talk about this and try to make some sense out of it or whatever.
there's one issue I want to bring up real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, I noticed all the little icons that kind of fly by on the intro. Well,
Yeah.
why is either a horse's head or a
John,
donkey's head?
John Peterson.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
All right, yeah.
Yep.
Have you heard from him? How's he doing?
I haven't talked to him for a while. I think he's just enjoying his time off. So
Yeah,
and
okay.
he's dealing with his mom and health issues. So
Right.
he's trying
That's some
to
heavy stuff.
concentrate. Best to leave him be.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Time
I hope
off.
he's doing well though. If he somehow hears this out in the ether,
Yeah.
or the internet, then just sending good wishes his way.
Yep. Yes. So I have my little drawing pad. Anyway, so this whole thing, like I was reading that, was it Pelucci or something, did a thing on scientism and how bad it is and all that stuff.
About Massimo Pelucci?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it just didn't please me at all. But he was going after Sam Harris and who the hell, Hawking and Dawkins and all those guys who have pretty much famously come down on philosophy and said, it's just a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of mental masturbation and useless and has no purpose, and we need just science, right? That sort of thing.
Right.
And do you understand the frustration? I mean, having listened to Danny and some of the things that have happened on the channel since Danny came on, who's one of these philosophers, right? I mean, he's just a classic argument type prone philosopher, right?
Right.
Who picks a word, like knowledge or belief or desire or intention or something like that, and just starts running with it with these arguments. And then he interfaces with somebody else who disagrees with him, and it becomes a knack. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Why don't we try this without referring to said young philosopher by name, and just speak of philosophers in general?
Well, we'll just call them weenies in general. Okay, there's a lot of weenie philosophers.
Okay.
And the problem is the frustration with a lot of people is that in 200 years of arguing about belief and knowledge and epistemology, they have not gotten anywhere. They've created a whole body of work. You're reading that book, right? And you say, and they're talking about all the different isms. Okay.
Correct.
Why do we have more than one ism if we're actually trying to figure something out?
Because knowledge is hard.
Yeah. So
it's squishy. It's like one of those squishy toys that when you squeeze it real hard, it slips out of your hand. And people either get angry that it gets squishy, or they try to come up with a new epistemology.
Yeah, and so Leo says that Pelucci was going after the idiots who think science is the only tool by which to understand our world and our place within it. And I think it is the only tool that actually works, the only way to actually do it. Because these guys have done nothing but come up with one ism after another, and it's the fighting isms out there, and it just goes on and on and on. And if you read any SCP article, you'll find 12 sections, with a half dozen isms and the pros and cons and the criticisms and their back and forth and all of that. And it's for people who enjoy that sort of thing, who are immersed in it. It's just a fun game. It's like a video game that they're playing, right? But sometimes I would like to, make some progress. Like, for instance, if we have this rock in the world, right? This rock, and what we want to do is, you and I are up here. We look like little double arrows, except for we're up here and we're trying to figure out what that rock is, right? So we observe the rock.
Looks more like a mouse to me.
That rock does?
Without a tail, yeah.
Kind of is. Yeah. There you go.
I don't know if you can see my. Can you see my mouse? Probably not, because you're sharing the screen on your. Okay, yeah. See, you see where I'm seeing it. Yeah,
I see where you're going. Anyway, so we're observing a mouse. We're trying to figure this. Oh, now he looks like a cow, but we're trying to figure this mouse out, and you and I, right? And
right.
so we're making observations about the mouse and stuff, and we write down all kinds of like science facts about the mouse. And what we're doing is, we're putting the mouse in a frame, right, in the world, in his environment. And this frame has like Cartesian coordinate lines, right? So we can tell where the mouse is, we can tell where he moves, we can figure out everything about the mouse. Okay. And now some weenie comes along and says, well, basically, let's talk about you observing the mouse, and let's talk about your eyes, and let's talk about your brain and your knowledge, and let's talk about you, right? And you say to him, no, we're talking about the mouse. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Right. Yeah.
So this becomes sort of a rift in the universe. I mean, all of a sudden, you were talking about the mouse. And you were trying to figure out the mouse, and you were not considering your interaction with the mouse at all. You were just talking about the mouse.
That's right. A lot of mouse talk going on.
A lot of what?
Mouse talk.
Mouse talk. Yeah, a lot of mouse talk.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like sci mouse. We're doing sci mouse talk. So we're sci mousism or whatever. So we're talking about the mouse. And do you understand how it would become extremely confusing if somebody now comes along and talks about how we observe the mouse, how we know what the mouse, how do we know this, how do we know that, and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a little bit of a hum going on there. I don't know what that is.
Oh, look, it's actually my washing machine. I'll go close the door. Hold on.
That's a washing machine?
Well, it's not a healthy washing machine, and it's at a certain phase.
Wow. Okay. Are you ready? Are you back? Oh, let's see. You use a pseudonym like Donnie, Denny. No one will know who you're talking about. How about Weenie, CRISPR? We'll just talk about weenies. We're talking about weenies in general.
Yeah, the guy they always send whenever I have an issue, that my warranty covers on my washing machine. He always comes and he makes these passive aggressive remarks about my house. And I swear, if I just swore one day, if he ever comes back to my house, I'm throwing him through the window.
Yep. That's a good idea.
So I'm very reluctant to call for minor little issues like that hum.
So it's a problem when you start talking about the observer and how you know things. Then you could come back on him and say, well, how do you know that? And how do you know, you're an observer? And how do you know, how do you define knowledge? And now we're up here and we're just doing nothing but fucking talking about, us, right?
Yeah.
And we really want to remove us from the frame entirely, right? So what I do with scientism is I say, okay, fine. If you want to talk about us now, observing the mouse, and you want to talk about human knowledge, right? Well, then we are down here all of a sudden, right? So now we're in the frame. Now we're we're still out here talking about the frame. Okay, you and I are out here. And so this is called the GEV, basically the God's eye view version.
God's eye view, the ideal of objectivity and science research.
Right. And we're putting ourselves in this Cartesian scientism frame, and we're saying, okay, now you want to talk about human knowledge. Fine, let's talk about human knowledge. We're also talking about mouse knowledge, and we're talking about human brains, right? And mammalian brains. And now
brains.
So now we can use all of what we know about science to decide what is common between the mouse and the human being. So if you want to talk about fucking knowledge, let's first of all talk about what is knowledge in a physical system, in a physical frame. And then and then you figure out what could knowledge be. And then of course we're sort of like projecting, we're sort of putting ourselves back in there and sort of searching around inside of our own minds. Trying to say, I have knowledge of things. How does that work? So we have some evidence coming from ourselves, from our first person point of view.
So that kind of equates to the earlier definitions of sensory perception, empiricism.
Yeah. And we can talk about that to a point, but you've got to be very careful, because how exactly are we observing our own observation of things? Is that even possible, right? And so you want to talk, we could go off and we could spin off into another fucking dimension talking about that shit for hours.
Yeah, you would take a God's eye view on you taking a God's eye view, but also having to take the same God's eye view on the mouse to observe how you're affecting that mouse, and if it's corrupting I guess we would say purity, the integrity of your
observation.
Of your data, essentially.
What the fuck did I just do?
Apparently you're enthusiastic about that yellow and green.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened there. I'm not sure what happened there. That's pretty interesting. But anyway, so what I mean by using scientism is this, first of all, grounding knowledge in brains. So if we're going to talk about knowledge, we are obviously talking about human brains. I don't think anybody would deny that, but it's possible somebody would deny that. But if they do, I don't really care. If you think you have a soul or you think you have a spirit mind, then you're not worth talking to, as far as I'm concerned, in the first place. So, or if you have some idea about dualism, where you think that mind is a separate kind of substance, then
you're saying they're not worth talking to in terms of discussing epistemology, or let's say they are mouse scientists or whatever, and you're discussing some project and its results about a mouse.
Right. So you just want to talk about mice, fine. Then I think they can keep themselves separate. But as soon as they say, "Oh, but how can we be sure of our senses?" Then they're out the fucking door with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I guess I really don't have a lot of patience for dualism and that sort of thing. So, but I will entertain it. And tonight I'm going to entertain it again with Immutable and try to get them to understand our thoughts.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to have to start having an intervention for you about Immutable the way we do Andrew about going on to creationist live streams.
Yeah, probably.
This is turning into some sort of addiction, and I'm kind of getting concerned about you.
I'm concerned too. I guess I'm.
No,
I can't believe it's this difficult.
Knowledge is a squishy topic, and to ask the question, how do you know that's really a mouse? You kind of want to blow it off, but I only think you can really deal with knowledge in some sort of Bayesian way. We can think of these corner cases where you're expecting a mouse. It's in a cage. It's in the room designated mouse room or mouse lab or whatever. But it just happens to be a really good Android version of a mouse. So do you know it's a mouse?
Right.
Because it fits all your expectations of what a mouse is, but so you're justified to know, quote unquote, know it's a mouse, but it violated or fell under that one tiny probability that we can make mice androids and put them in the mouse lab.
Yeah, it could be something else. It's like Danny on that stream where he was talking about abio versus resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
These one-off events. And last night we were talking about, the old Earth, and I said it was absolutely, that I would believe in magic if I found out the Earth was absolutely 3,000 or 6,000 years old, because magic would be required, because no way a natural world could do that. But that's another discussion. But anyway, so now if I want to figure out something about myself, like knowledge, I've got me in a frame, right? And this whole thing out here is going to be my frame. So,
in England, being in the frame means that they're going to arrest you for a crime, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That ain't good. Well, fuck the English. They don't know what they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. Hell with those guys. Anyway, so okay, if we're going to talk about knowledge, then obviously we're talking about brains.
Brains.
Okay. And that's the first thing we need to talk about is, what is knowledge in a brain? And now if I want to figure out what I am, okay, like what am I? I could do like I think, therefore I am, or the way I do it is like I'm here, therefore all this stuff is.
Hey, maybe you need to put an asterisk by brains and go down and say that you went past, like in the bottom in small print, I went past the topic of mind versus brains.
Oh, I skipped mind versus brains.
Brain. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. I'm just noting that there's a big topic there, a big. It may not be according to your system here, but obviously we have people who think mind and brain are totally different things.
Well, do you see how they get there? They're confused. They're confused. They're up here trying to take a God's eye view of themselves, right? And then they're trying to access their own accessing of their own accessing of their own accessing. And they can't do that. Okay. We can't do that yet. So I would use science basically to tell you what are our capabilities of introspection. How do we introspect our own minds, right? That's a pretty deep neuroscience topic. And after you figure that out, then we can figure this other shit out. But okay, I'm trying to figure out what knowledge is in my life, in my mind, or whatever. So I'm looking at myself, but I'm also drawing from within myself, right? Because I only have a first person point of view. But in all this stuff, I have a lot of memories, right? I have episodic memories. I remember that I just went out and talked to my friend out in the yard, okay? And earlier today, I went to the bank, and and after that, I saw another friend, and so I have this whole episodic stream of memories going on, right? That's one of the things that I know. And do I doubt those, or should I just say, okay, let's just accept those out of hand? Okay, let's bracket doubt for a minute, and just say, every one of us. I mean, when I sent you a message, Scott, did you say, well, how do I know that I am the same person I was yesterday, and that there's this person, Speed of Sound, who actually wants me to join a stream? And how do I know? I mean, maybe my senses are fooling me, and I don't know this and I don't know that. Do we do that? No, we don't fucking do it.
Nothing like that went through my brain.
Nothing. You just got
either consciously, or I don't want to say subconsciously, or let's just say quasi-consciously. It was, I need to get on StreamYard for my lunchtime, and I did.
So there are proper. Hi, doggy.
Please hold.
Okay. Anyway, so there are proper basic beliefs that we all have, and we all share, and we all feed ourselves, and we all fucking know it. And no matter how much you doubt your senses, doubt reality, doubt the world, every single one of us every day gets up, wakes up, eats, lives in a house. We do all this normal stuff. So what in the hell are we with? What is all this skepticism about? I mean, there is a natural world right before us, and we know how it works. And why not just accept that provisionally? You don't have to say, oh, I know for absolute certain that this natural world exists. I can get out of here, cat. Go on. This is a philosophy talk. No cats. Anyway, so the acceptance of the natural world on a provisional basis, or like as a premise, says.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm just talking to
okay, good.
Okay, what I was saying is that there are proper basic beliefs, like I exist, I'm a human being, I have to eat today, I got a job, I got to do things, right? We all do that. Every fucking one of us on this planet, every human being. So what is all this skepticism about natural world about? So
I guess the question I would ask, are those properly basic beliefs, like I have to eat today, is that really, in philosophical terms, a properly basic belief? I don't know the answer.
No, I think they may have something else going on, but I don't give a fuck. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this locality around me. There's this locality around me. Okay, that I wake up with every day that I've carried through my life, and I have all these memories about that locality, and we have all these things that identify us as who we are. We know who we are because of our memories, because of our episodic memories, and because of our memories of our entire life, right? So, I mean, there isn't really any question about that. We all have that. We all do it. We all rely on it. And so what I'm saying is that if we all rely on it, why not just bracket it and accept it provisionally and say, okay, fine. There's this natural world around us right now that we know about, that we all agree on and know about. I mean, I could sell you a car, and, you wouldn't say, oh, well, is that an illusion of a car? Am I certain there's a car there? You wouldn't do any of that shit, right? Nobody does.
Right.
So, I mean, what the
knowledge is provisional. I think that's true. It's always subject to update.
Right.
If not negation.
Yeah.
Now, what is the other? There's another word that usually goes with such things, provisional, and I don't know the other word to put to it. But yeah, it reminds me of what my philosophy of religion professor in seminary said. Is he defined epistemic humility as being, at worst, I'm wrong. At best, I'm incomplete.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you take things as true until something comes along to either negate that as the truth, in other words, make it false, or update it in some way.
So anyway, the first thing that I do is accept everything as locally natural. That, there's nothing spooky going on that isn't covered by science entirely. I mean, I could take my entire locality here, the area, 50 feet around my house, myself, everything that's affecting me right now. I can hear people 50 feet away sighing something, that sort of shit. All that impinges upon me locally. It's all natural. I could conceivably, or in principle, figure everything out that was going on with my trees, my yard, the worms, my cats, everything, my heart, my health, all naturally. If my health starts to fail, I go to a doctor who uses science, and he assumes naturality. I do not go to a witch doctor. Okay, we all, so the first thing is to accept that things are locally natural. That what we know is going to work naturally on a local basis. We're not going to be looking for magic or anything like that sort of thing. So that's kind of the basis of it. So in principle, I could figure everything out about what's going on with me physically, and we're going to bracket mind for the time being. So there's little brackets around mind, and not talk about that quite yet. And just accept that much of the world. So we're not going to talk about anything about how we observe the world or any fucking thing, because right now we're not going to talk about how we got to that local naturality. We're just going to accept it as a premise. It is my premise. I get to do that. I get to provisionally accept a premise, right, for my argument, that sort of thing. If you disagree with it, you have to do it somewhere later on in the discussion, basically. This is just to find out if if I am consistent, right? So one of the things that if I start drawing it in and looking at, I want to look at knowledge, or I want to look at how I know things. So what I'm going to be concerned with is exactly what am I drawing on? And one of the big things we draw on is this memory, this episodic memory, right, of who we are, where we came from. And I think we all agree that at one time we were zygotes. We were babies, right? So we're zygotes, and now I'm me.
Correct.
Now I'm me, that sort of thing. So when I was born here, and then right around here, I started crawling, and then learned how to walk about here and all that sort of stuff. And I, entered, college over here, and all this shit. So we have all of this knowledge that we've accumulated about the world over our lifetime. And the interesting thing is that you and I, who have never actually met physically, live in entirely different states, can communicate really well. And I mean, I could, you told me that your washer was making noise. I know exactly what the hell you were talking about. How the fuck does that work? How does that work in an inconsistent world? A world that isn't naturally consistent. So that lends force. Other people being able to talk to other people and getting this input, it lends force to this naturalistic, locality, that sort of thing. That things are happening naturally. So that is that trust of other humans and myself, that and the world in general, the fact that the floor is here and all of that. I mean, there are a trillion or probably a billion little points of knowledge that have gone into that trust, right? So a billion points of K.
And by trust, you mean the expectation that things will occur consistently,
right? And I can walk in the other room and make some coffee and just fully operate in my life. So we're organisms operating in my life. But now we can step out and we can say, okay, well, what the fuck am I inside of this locality? And that's where I come to, I have all these other bits of knowledge which happen, somewhere around here, that I am an organism, that I am a human being, that I have a heart that pumps blood. If I shoot my heart, I will die. If I lose all my blood, I will die. If I don't eat, I will die. All that shit, right? So you get all this stuff about us as an organism. And a subset of that is what's happening right here in this brain, right? So when you go out and you start learning about brains, if you want to talk about knowledge, I think it just amazes me that people don't want to talk about how knowledge is stored in a brain. Like, what is knowledge in a brain? That sort of thing. So hang on a second. So don't you think that is the first thing that you would want to do is start talking about what knowledge is in a human brain? If you're going to talk about knowledge, to me, that's just a slam dunk, right?
Well, I kind of think so. For me, my starting position when I think about knowledge is essentially perceptions. And
Okay.
those perceptions are definitely stored in your mind.
Yeah, and how they're stored is kind of curious and kind of cool. And when
I do recognize some of the problems with that. Note my use of the word squishy, and me wondering what an awareness of Bayes' theorem helps with that. It seems to me to help understanding those what are they called, Gettier challenges, which should actually be attributed to an Indian philosopher from the 8th century. But anyway.
Yeah, well, figuring out, okay, if you want to talk about one particular piece of knowledge, then what exactly, what do you say? What do you want to talk about? When you talk about knowledge, what do you want to talk about?
Always my grandson.
Okay. Your knowledge of your grandson.
Yes.
You believe it
I'm
exists?
sorry. You asked me what I want to talk about.
Oh, you
No,
want to talk about your grandson? Okay, we can talk about your
course.
knowledge of your grandson.
Yeah, he's got blonde hair.
Okay, does he exist?
Hell yeah,
How certain are you?
absolutely.
Any Getty problems or anything there? Nothing.
No, now
Yeah.
he lives in a house
Okay,
in the town down south of me,
and you know how?
and when I go into that house, he's always there.
Right.
Now he could have been replaced by an android baby, but so if I go in there and I see that a blonde-headed toddler is there, I know he's there, but there's a chance he could be an android. So the knowledge technically isn't absolute, but the probability of that corner case, that challenge to it, is very low, extremely low, negligibly low.
Yeah.
So
So
I feel like I know that he's there and that's legitimate knowledge.
yeah, and justified true belief. I mean, do you need it? Do you require it? Does it matter? Does any of it?
Well, that's where I'm going to have to go back and look at the chapter in that epistemology, a short introduction.
Yeah.
Because it did mention some challenges to justified true belief that I need to review. But right now, I don't feel like I'm competent to overturn justified true belief.
Right. Okay. So,
but really, to me, by justified, it's on a probabilistic, Bayesian type schema there.
Yeah, and I don't know. Defining knowledge as justified true belief has its own problems, because then you end up with trying to define truth and what is truth, and then you end up with compatibilism and just all sorts of other isms and little border problems. And basically, what is important about that when it comes to the neuroscience of knowledge? And if there is anything important, is there anything about the neuroscience of knowledge that could back that up and perhaps unwind some of that difficulty that people have? So we're already accepting completely that we have local naturality, that everything is natural, right? Everything is natural that we're dealing with. We're not going to deal with any supernatural stuff. And we've accepted that provisionally. So when we go back and we look at memory, and then memory, knowledge and memory are very, very, very much tightly linked together. We have knowledge of what we did last week, or what I did 5 minutes ago, and all of that stuff. And the thing is that back here, in this procession from zygote to 3-year-old, this is where we acquire things like knowledge of space, time, abstracts, other minds, all of that knowledge, that those basic beliefs or that basic knowledge that we navigate the world with. And I think it was Kant had these categories. He called them categories. That there is this big noumenal world out there. What's really out there that we can never conceive of or talk about. And we have these categories that we acquire, or that I think he thought they were like built-in categories, that they were innate or a part of us. And these categories allow us to understand time, space, and things and objects and things like that, right? So there's like a whole metaphysic that develops when you're just a little tiny baby. And that develops in your brain. This ability to live in the world, or the metaphysical world that you have been born into. Okay. And do you understand how difficult that is for an organism to do?
Well, I understand it's difficult. I just don't know. I don't know how difficult it is, because I haven't done a lot of the neurological studies or whatever.
Okay, but people who are doing AI realize how difficult it is to get something to walk, or something to understand that it can't walk through objects, and that it is in a room, that there are doors in rooms, one door leads to another, and there are hallways between rooms. And Marvin Minsky wrote some wonderful work about how these categories develop, these just basic categories that frame our reality. And he was an AI researcher, and he passed away not too long ago. But he did some brilliant work about like how a child might figure out how to build, how to stack blocks, like we stack blocks, right? And then how to build a bridge across, something else, so that you could go through this space, but you can't. And he gets into like the details of this category of space and time. And from that category of space and time is where our brains start to acquire the ability to handle abstract objects. So that's why I will always say that abstract objects are real things in the universe. They are features of our universe that our brain has adapted to and acquired. Now, if we were born into a universe where objects could both occupy the same space, and there was no space, in fact, and that everything was just sort of like in one place, but defined with some other weird property. If we were born into a universe that was very, very different, our brains are plastic enough that we would actually be able to probably learn how to function in that universe, if there was such a thing as functioning in that universe, right? So it's that plasticity of the brain in the first 3 years that shapes a great deal of our knowledge and our abstracts and how we do things. And that is the point where I would really, really want to start talking about knowledge, about how an organism acquires that. And that is very interesting, because we have to add another page. Are you following me so far?
Yeah, for some reason my mind's going to a kind of a Skinnerian idea of learning, which means it's, a change. In order for there to be a learning, there has to be a change in behavior. Yeah. Although that's a bit strict, but it's very simplistic.
I was going to kind of get there, because we have arms and legs and fingers and, eyes and ears out here, and we have orientations and all of that. So the way that we acquire that knowledge of, let's call that the way the world works, let's call it a metaphysic. We'll call it a metaphysic, like a noun, metaphysic. So this is the noumenal form of the world, that we're born into, and we are a part of that. And the way we learn is by moving our arms, fingers, eyes, and sounds, coming at us from different angles. That whole body of knowledge from this world, okay, all of this sensory information in the first, 3 years of life start to shape what our brains are and what our brains do. They shape that plasticity. And that plasticity is, let me see if I can draw a goddamn brain. I always fail at drawing the brain. We got that little thing right there, and we got this, and I always fuck that up because there actually isn't a line there. Let me try to get a brain, and there's this, the pons and all of that stuff. And then we have the spine, and we got nerves sticking out, right? Anyway, in the brain up here, I need a different color. Right here we have this strip, okay, and this strip is there's two strips. The first one is our sensory cortical neurons, right? And so we're getting all this stuff from outside world that goes into the senses. This one is the motor cortex. Right in front of that is something called a premotor cortex. And in the back of the brain here, there's something called the cerebellum, which is basically a big, huge computer. It processes linear algebra and calculus. If I throw a ball to you, the way you know how to catch a ball is because of this thing, right? And that all developed as I was coming out of this zygote phase into, like my first 2 months of life, right? So all of this stuff developed, and it hooked up to this computer, and we tend to move by, activating this motor cortex here. And we plan to move by activating our premotor cortex. And then there's other layers and human beings, I think, have an additional layer that other primates don't. And these layers basically kind of interface like, okay, the premotor cortex plans the movement for the motor cortex, and the frontal lobes plan the moves for the premotor cortex. And, and here's where we do abstract objects, and the more layers we have, the more abstract we can get, right? And all of that stuff, all of that plasticity is put together in this first few months of life, where this metaphysic impinges on that brain and basically teaches us how to acquire the world and how to interact in the world. But in order to do that, we do a whole lot of movements. So if we were just born a brain and we had absolutely no ability to move, we would develop very badly, if at all. I don't think we would develop at all. We have to be able to interact with our bodies and get feedback through the senses and keep fine-tuning this adaptability to this metaphysical world that we're born into. So anyway, do you follow that?
Yes. Do you know the question that Corag asked here? It's on the screen.
By metaphysic, I mean something very, very different than what a lot of philosophers mean. By metaphysic, I mean how, like, when you consider space-time as a Cartesian coordinate system, or a rough Cartesian coordinate system, that would be a metaphysic where you have objects or you have material in it, and two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. There are all sorts of rules, and I would call that the metaphysic. So a metaphysic is like a geometry, basically a geometry of something that could exist. Now, when I did some computer modeling where I tried to create very, very simple metaphysical systems that were Cartesian coordinates with space and time. And mine were two-dimensional they started out two-dimensional, and then I went to 3 dimensions when I added time, and I put little objects in it, and I tried to create, how things would interact, right? And then I thought, wow, what if I created a metaphysic where there was no space and objects defined basically, so the idea of space was defined by the relationship of objects, and there was no real Cartesian coordinate system. So anyway, a metaphysic could be different than what it is in our world. But for our purposes, we're going to accept that we live in a 4D space-time world. And I call that a metaphysic. So, and Danny thinks that's absolute gibberish. What does that mean, Danny? What does absolute gibberish mean? So we're accepting this 4D metaphysic. That's what we're talking about with naturalism, right? Space-time. I mean, I think everybody could accept that provisionally. So, but it could be something else. Anyway, so this interaction with the environment, our bodies build our mind, and our bodies kind of are our mind, because the way we when you think about, if you think about a concept, don't you kind of get like a little bucket idea in your mind, like a little space where you can put things? That's a question, Scott.
Sorry, I'm slow to the unmute button.
Oh,
yeah, I believe when you conceive of things, you're making a little space in your mind to mull it about.
Yeah, when we draw concepts, we draw a circle, So
Yeah.
Right here now, Marvin Minsky would talk about this idea we have of containerism, right? So we have ideas of containers. I mean, that's built into our reality so thoroughly that we frequently, like when we think about my mind, when I think, what is my mind? I think my mind is a container. There's something I want to put in my mind, or something I think is in my mind, right? So we have this idea of containers. And from that, we get these abstracts, we can talk about 2 containers. And then we can talk about how the two relate and all of that bullshit. So I mean, we get all of our ideas from the space-time metaphysic, where it becomes common for us to draw shapes, to do our diagrams and explain things to one another, right? So does any of this make sense? This idea that we are brains.
Yes. To me, I understand what you're saying. I don't know how to evaluate it philosophically.
Okay, immutable does it require evaluation philosophically, or could you evaluate it scientifically? Like we could be talking about a mouse, right?
I would love for Danny or Immutable to come on and steel man what you're saying.
Oh, they wouldn't steel man it. No, it doesn't make it.
Because I don't know that they're making a good faith effort to understand you.
No, I don't think so either. So, I mean, backing up, to the beginning, we were talking about a mouse, and we were talking about how we could decide how a mouse knows things, or how, we can go back to a mouse. Okay, you got a mouse embryo. Okay, it's a zygote, that the mouse is born into the world, and the mouse has a brain, and it has a body, and the mouse moves around, and that sort of thing. I mean, it just isn't that difficult to figure out what we're talking about.
Okay, I didn't see the link. Sorry to interrupt again. I usually always do that, but
you always come in interrupting, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know what? At this point, it's a staple of this channel, and
it's a what?
It's a staple of this channel.
Oh yeah, it is kind of, yeah, and you're good at it.
Well, yeah, but would you mind removing Danny's banner? I feel hidden.
Oh, Danny has a banner? Oh.
Yeah, but you also put brain. Well, basically, Danny and Immutable are saying, "Oh, it's gibberish." Like, well, okay, what makes it gibberish? You saying what makes it gibberish doesn't help anybody. Least of all me, who hasn't really dug into scientism yet.
Yeah, is anybody else following what I'm trying to talk about with brains and let's bring it back to a mouse. Let's bring it back to talking about a mouse. Oh, you're Cerberus.
Yay.
Hey, Cerberus.
Did you say hey or yay? You said
I said yay, and now I'm saying hi.
God damn, Cerb.
Hey, hi. Hey, hi. Oh my God, I don't know.
I came in
just in
time for gibberish.
What's that?
I came in just in time for gibberish. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, no, both Danny and Immutable saying that what speech position is gibberish. Now, I don't really know enough about scientism or whatever the fuck to comment. When I asked him in the last year, okay, what makes it gibberish?
Well, I got
no answer.
Okay, I got news for you. Scientism is science, applying science to what we are. That's all it is.
From what I always heard the term, it's always used as a pejorative to describe people who uncritically accept science.
I think it's kind of a pissing match between science and philosophy, where Hawking and people like that have come on and said philosophers are full of shit. And they've said some really harsh things about philosophers.
Yeah, philosophy is dead.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I want to read something. At Answers to the Atheist, can you steel man the following argument? And then once you do, I'll steel man your argument. Which is CRISPR trying to say that your argument is incoherent or gibberish. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, okay. Well, fuck y'all.
So, is there a specific of what they think is gibberish?
I don't know. They said it's all gibberish. Are you familiar with Marvin Minsky, Cerberus?
Not really.
Okay. God, nobody's familiar with that work that he did. He did 2 books. He did one on what the fuck was it? Community of the Mind or Society of the Mind. And basically, Marvin Minsky was an AI researcher. And his problem was trying to figure out how to get a robot to grow up like a child, right? And understand what blocks are and how how you can manipulate blocks in space. And he said, and so he gets into it like the first thing you need to figure out is that there are two sides to things and that you have a point of view. And from there, you figure out, that you can grab something, you can learn how to acquire or pick up a block, move it into position. And then he talked about how you figure out what a bridge is or how to build a bridge. They have something that goes across two things. So now we have to acquire all of this knowledge of basically gravity and just all of these things that he gets into at a really minute level, where you have to acquire these little bits of knowledge. And that's what happens when you start out with this zygote, right? That is us, and you end up a 3-month-old child who can actually pick things up, and I don't know. It's been a long time since I had a baby.
Yeah.
How much is a 3-month-old? Scott, you know about babies.
Well, I mean, when we think about babies exploring their environment, right? They seem to have a sort of innate, not drive, an innate awareness of their environment as they explore it, right? As they more explore it, they become more aware of their environment. The brain seems to be wired, pre-installed, if you will, with these. The analogy sucks, but software packages, which tell the child, okay, where. Let me start again. Okay, we're in a 3D environment. Let me explore it to better understand it.
Yeah,
it seems the brain seems to come pre-packaged with mathematics.
When do they acquire theory of mind? Isn't it like between 1 and 3?
I believe 2 or 3.
That's pretty important.
Hold on. It's once they learn language. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll just throw this in there. If it's the way Speed's trying to develop a theory of mind, the answer is never.
Okay, come on. Coming in. Wait, did you just hide Immutable?
I threw him out. Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
I don't have time for this shit.
I mean, but holy shit!
What do you have time for?
I want to know what is actually nonsense.
Wow. I mean that. No offense, Speed, but that seems like an innocuous question.
Like, did they say exactly what they thought was nonsensical, or are they just saying the whole thing that I'm not aware of is nonsensical?
Okay, they're gonna come in and tell me now what's nonsensical. So,
I mean, let's take a starting point. I mean,
I'll mute. Sorry, that was funny.
Let's pick a starting point. Where do you?
Yeah,
let's
just examine one proposition at a time. That would help.
Yeah, because it's like you're making an argument in different languages, like with symbols that are just going all over the place.
Okay, what I'm talking about is how we get from a zygote, to the point where.
Let's just start one proposition. Let's start with just one proposition.
You used to be a zygote.
Okay, I don't think I was a zygote.
You don't?
No.
Okay, you're not a zygote. You never were.
Right.
Okay, I kind of thought you were hatched out of it. Well, an egg is a zygote. Okay,
wait, do you think I was a sperm and an egg?
I think you were a zygote. Like
The point is that I don't identify with the zygote.
Here's a question though. You think you were a zygote, but do you think you were like 100 nanoseconds before the sperm and the egg cell fused?
What does that have to do with acquisition of knowledge?
No, I'm trying to ask you, like, where, under your theory of mind, when did you become a person? When was like personhood first established?
What does that have to do with acquisition of knowledge? Probably out here where the theory of mind popped up. That's where I started thinking of myself as a person.
Because you're talking about personal knowledge, so I kind of want to know when is the first moment you consider personhood, so we can talk about when the person in question begins acquiring knowledge.
I don't believe in such a moment.
Okay, I want to ask a question really quick here. Is this going to be a continuation into our weather report? Is this
It looks
going to
like
be weather report
It
for
looks
today?
like it.
looks like
Okay. If that's the case, though, how do you know that you're a person now?
Well, what does that matter?
Because you're saying there's no clear line of demarcation between personhood and non-personhood.
What does this matter with what I'm talking about with the acquisition of knowledge?
Your
What
theory
is-
addresses personal knowledge, right?
No, I didn't say personal knowledge. I said knowledge.
Right, but you're talking about knowledge like that's acquired through the brain and that humans like perceive. So it's dealing like with a form of knowledge like that's beyond like propositional forms, right? Or different from propositional forms. You're talking about knowledge a person like interpersonally experiences and perceives, right?
You know what a mammal is, right?
I am. Do you know what a person is?
That doesn't make much sense to me. I'm a mammal. Okay, identify as a mammal. Do you know what a mammal is?
Yes. Do you
Why do
identify?
I get to hold on? Why do I get the feeling you guys are talking way past each other?
Yeah,
I'm
I
asking
don't,
a
I don't know
direct
what he's. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm talking about mammals acquiring knowledge of the world. So what
and
are
I'm
you
asking,
talking
are
about?
you a person?
Why do you want to know if I'm a person? And wait, why are you talking about me at all? I'm talking about a mouse, mammal,
Okay,
knowledge of the world.
I need to say something. Can we just come on? Can we just agree that a person is just a legal term and move on?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a good legal term. I don't know.
Wait, I'm confused. Okay, so Danny's being pedantic, right? He's saying he wasn't a zygote. He knows it's completely legitimate to track someone
Right.
from zygote to grown up. You can even track someone back farther than that. It's just we arbitrarily make our line and where we want to consider someone a person.
Thank
Right?
you.
It doesn't matter where you want to put the line at. It's just as long as we can track it from one point to another point to another point through time. I don't see what Danny was getting at. I'm not sure what immutable's getting at.
I don't know either.
My objection to that is if you try and define like personality as being just a response to like environments, right? Then it doesn't seem like there's a clear demarcation for when a person, like for when you're going to call something like a person when you don't call it a person. Because all of biology is doing the exact same routine, right? They're responding to stimuli and they're adapting to it. And they're growing and they're evolving.
Okay.
And so, like, one of the things that Speed's made fairly clear is that there's differentiation between personal knowledge and, like, propositional knowledge. I'm under the impression that we're talking about personal knowledge.
By
And for that-
personal knowledge, or are you talking about like knowledge by acquaintance? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think I'm talking about, like, if I observe, like, the sky being blue, like how it is I come to know that process.
Yeah, that's
Like,
knowledge by acquaintance.
Yeah, by some virtue of like some complicated neurological process and weird circuitry in the brain, right? But for personal knowledge to be a thing, there has to be a person.
Well,
right?
no. I mean, knowledge by acquaintance, I think you could argue, starts at the point in which you start having like brain material. Right, you're experiencing things. The brain is what it is experiencing.
Right.
So as soon as you have it, to some maybe we don't know the exact moment in which you need the enough brain material to be considered a brain, but it's pretty clear
Right.
that that's where that's happening at.
But that seems to be making an equivocation on identity in the brain, right?
No, not at all. I never said anything about person. I'm talking about a brain getting experiences.
I don't know why you're going to identity and person and personal. Basically,
I'm trying to establish that there's two forms of knowledge and that we're distinguishing one from the other. So I'm not going to talk about propositional knowledge, but I will talk about this other form of knowledge.
Well,
okay, two
there's
forms
at least
of
three.
knowledge. What are they?
I've said already, personal and propositional.
Also skills. Skills are another type of knowledge or whatever.
You can subdivide it further into like moral knowledge and things like that, but
No, because moral knowledge is it's propositional.
Yeah, that's a long conversation.
Why would you come into a brain discussion and start talking about this higher level of knowledge where, you know, we have to start talking about episodic memory, and we have to talk about skill memory and basically motor memory, and then we can start talking about the knowledge to pump our heart, you know, which is kind of like a kind of knowledge. So, I mean, I don't understand why you're coming, and that's what I mean by scientism is starting a lot simpler, getting way back.
Let's start at the simplest level. What do you think is like the most basal form of knowledge?
Basically, a synaptic connection in your brain, a neuron. A neuron that synapses on another neuron. That's kind of where it starts. So that's sort of the basics of how you wire up to acquire the world and to interact with the world.
Okay.
Okay, I have a quick question. Are you letting Danny back in or no?
I don't think so.
All right, never mind. Carry on.
In what way does that constitute knowledge?
Does anybody think Danny's can add anything to this discussion? Do you think?
I think he can. I think he can steelman my point and your point. So,
I think he can. I think he'll be too busy arguing whether he should be considered a zygote at one point or not, though.
I know, and I don't want to have that conversation.
So I think he's capable. I just don't think he will.
Yeah, he probably won't. So, anyway, so we want to find out what knowledge about what knowledge is. I think we almost have to go back and we have to start asking ourselves what happened in this first 3 months out here, right? Between zygote and 3-month-old, right? What kinds of knowledge?
You just said 5 seconds ago.
What's that?
Can we go back to the statement you made 5 seconds ago about synaptic junctions and that being a form of knowledge?
Not being a form? Yeah, that is a form of knowledge. That's where it starts.
I kind of want to parse that. In what way do you consider that to be knowledge?
Okay. So this baby out here, right, has, I think, what the fuck is it? Like, is it 100 billion neurons? And it's going to get pared down to about 30 or 40 billion neurons in the cortex, right? And that's part of acquiring knowledge is actually, and of course, creationists would say, well, it's losing information. Yes, there's all these connections, you know, to the brain, and they get pared down. And what's happening, the really big thing that's happening is this motor cortex right here, this strip that runs down our brain. So that's like the first thing that starts to develop as a motor cortex, right?
Okay.
And when you start to interact with the world, you have something called who's beeping? Okay, when you start to interact with the world, that's where the premotor cortex comes in and starts interfacing with this motor cortex. And then, like, my first science experiment was poking myself in the eye. So the first thing I learned is how not to poke myself in the eye because it fucking hurts, right? That sort of thing. So, I mean, all of that stuff is like the first stuff that develops. And what happens, the first thing that happens is a lot of these neurons are going to die off, right? And the only ones that are going to be important are the ones that are involved in moving our limbs in certain ways and getting certain results. And then it's going to start to go into this premotor cortex. And eventually we're going to start to employ higher level, basically other loops around that interact with that sort of, with our mind-body connection. And that's where, you know, the science is right now. That's what we're learning right now about how all of that happens. Okay. And that, I call that knowledge. That's the beginning of knowledge. So in order to talk about knowledge, you don't start talking about propositional knowledge because you're not going to acquire that even at 3 years old. You know, you might have a little, like, well, what would be a good example of propositional knowledge for a 3-year-old?
Well, I mean, I think they can know propositions. I mean, when you're teaching your kid morality, right and wrong, don't do that, don't do this, that's propositional knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think it goes even more basic than that. Like infants, for instance, they know when they cry that they get that elicits a response from, you know, their parents or somebody else, and they establish a relation between. Their mind kind of figures out this relation between action and response, which, in a basic form, is kind of a form of an if-then statement. Yeah. If I cry, something happens.
So you think propositional knowledge would even go back to this premotor cortex system,
Yeah.
right?
I-
I mean, I think it all goes back to the brain, but I'm not so sure if you could call what Immutable was just saying is propositional. I mean, it's not like the kid understands that it's true.
No, well, no,
Yeah.
but what they're doing is they're
Why would you do
relating two different states to each other, right?
Yeah. It's like the precursor to propositional knowledge.
Yeah, I mean it's vanilla propositional knowledge, essentially.
Yeah, and so how does that turn into a proposition? Like you said, the kid understands that something is true. We need a good example. What would be an example for a 3-year-old?
Well, I mean, they understand a response, right? So I mean, they understand that if there's a response, that the action was effective.
Okay.
They know
Right.
mommy is mad.
So what would it be like a problem if I cry or make a noise? If I make this noise, mom looks at me.
Mom looks at me, or mom picks me up, or something like that.
She first of all looks at you. Like I notice my cats and raccoons and everything, they really watch my eyes. And like cats will rub your leg until you look at them or pay attention to them. So I mean, all animals acquire this ability to get another animal's. And of course, then we're dealing with theory of mind already. We're already in the theory of mind. So I'd like to go back before that and try to determine what an early propositional kind of knowledge would be.
I don't know how it gets more basic than what I was describing.
Like you do something, okay, I'm going to do something, and that happens in this premotor cortex. Like I have this attitude to move my arm, to lift my arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my arm lifts
Right.
in exactly the way that I expect it to. So now the interesting thing about the cortex is it has this look forward. Like the cortex exists in what is it, 6 or 7 layers? There's layers. The layer at the very top looks forward to another neuron. So when this neuron fires, this neuron has an expectation to fire. So it gets like a pre-signal. So it's ready to fire. And if it fires, everything's fine and it goes on to the next step. But if it doesn't fire, everything gets all fucked up. And then you like loop back and start over. So if I will to lift my arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will to lift my arm and my arm goes fucking sideways. It doesn't work, right?
Right.
So something bad happens, then I will reset and I will retry, start over. But if my arm does in fact lift the way I want to, then this neural connection becomes stronger. And that's how we learn to move. So there's this look forward thing, and it's really, but it's fucking much more complicated than that because we're actually at that point already aware of our arm and space and what's happening. And I don't know how it all works, but you see how interesting and cool knowledge gets at this level.
Yeah, but look how messy it's getting, though. I mean, it.
Well, yeah, but it's going to be messy. We can figure it out, right? Because this is something that science can acquire.
I don't deny that, but I mean, already, like the way you're trying to explain this scientifically is bringing up a lot of notions, like philosophically, like in regards to logic and in regards to kind of.
I don't think any philosophy is needed at all at this point.
Yeah, so
I think it just gets in the way.
No,
That's why
I don't.
I'm a scientist.
So like when we consider the basic example, like if a baby responding to a stimulus, right? The type of logic that it's using, and I'm almost certain about this, right? It's enabling an inverse argument, right? So it's saying essentially if Q is so if you have a statement of the form if P then Q, right? What the infant is gauging that on, and even the neurons are kind of doing this in a way as well, but it's essentially making this kind of relation of if Q is true, then P is true. So if a person responds, then the attempt to make, then me making noise, to get a response, was realized, was received properly. Right? You're generating a prediction about, you're trying to infer a past state based upon an effect.
Yeah. So there's, basically, when the brain first develops and these connections are first made, and these motor connections are made through your spine to your hand, right? And there's something, basically there's an activating center at the center of your brain that causes you to do shit at all. So that's why babies flail around a lot. And so they're flailing around, but at some point they start to control that flailing, right? And at that point, they acquire the idea of truth and falsity, or this basic logic that you're talking about. So that's the point where my arm either raises the way I expect it to, or it doesn't. And I'm saying that you can actually find cortical wiring for that.
Well, sure.
Like the cortex is actually wired with these look forward mechanisms. So somehow that forward neuron is the result that we're looking for. So we've already basically acquired that. And now we move our arm and we expect it to do such. And if it doesn't do such, we will either butcher neurons or create increased synaptic strength until we get it exactly right, until we just go to that point. And there's a massive little system going on between your cerebellum, which is that tensor calculator I told you about, and your motor cortex to do all of that, right? And
right. I mean, that's not disputed. I mean,
but here in this premotor cortex is where you're acquiring the idea of success or failure. And that would be Danny's intention, the thing that he's reaching out for, that we acquire success or failure, that sort of thing. And that, I mean, what I'm looking for is the rawest kernel of basically brain neuroscience that explains that.
I mean, what Danny is trying to point at, and I think I agree with it, is that the two don't seem to relate really. Like, and I mean that in the following way, right? Like when you have a neuron that fires and it expects another neuron to fire, right? Yep. That can either be true or false. It can be true that the neuron fires appropriately, but it could also be false, right? It could be, it could misfire and it could, not synchronize in the way it's supposed to. But that seems to separate it in the type of, that seems to separate it from other physical phenomenon which don't have that kind of distinction. The electrochemical circuits in the brain are essentially convoluted differential equations, right, that are acting based upon probabilities, right? So there's some probability that neuron 1 will fire, at a specific voltage or whatever, and that in turn, primes other neurons with a probability to fire at some other, preconditioned response, right? But that's a process. That's something that's not true or false, right? That's something that's already determined by the structure of the network.
Okay, but if I will this, wherever the fuck that comes from, you could consider there's a little will motor at the center of our brain, and I will this action, and basically, so we have this cortical neuron here, and that cortical neuron sends it sends a signal to this neuron here, okay? And then what happens next is we get the next, hang on a second. I want to get rid of that. So basically, what the fuck? So then if this happens, then that's going to get another signal, and that is going to yield this sort of little bit of a dopamine rush that, that something true has happened. It worked, right? Okay. Right. If I don't get that signal, if I get a signal in another area, then I'm going to get something else, some other set of whatever
responses,
chemical soup that is going to go back, and it is going to weaken this connection. So it's going to, so basically, in order for the loop to get stronger and for me to learn how to raise my hand, this little system has to keep firing like clockwork, right? And if it doesn't, I'm not going to get the dopamine rush. It's not going to during my next sleep cycle. It's not going to strengthen that neural connection. Oh, fuck! God damn it, Char! What the fuck? Anyway,
right.
Okay. So that is the basis of truth and falsity and intention, and that's how it works in your brain. Like right now, every time when I start putting a sentence together, you are anticipating the grammar of my sentence, and that is because of this cortical layer 1 basically projecting and telling you that the next word you're going to hear is going to fit into that grammatical structure. So that's how our entire brain works, is with this look ahead network. I got a really good book for you, which would tell you in great detail about this stuff. So by a computer scientist. What's that?
Right. I don't disagree.
Okay, so why can't you?
I have a quick question. What book?
Fuck,
I have to go find it because I can't remember the guy's name.
Okay, that's fine. Text it to me. That's fine. Just wanted to interrupt to ask that. Go ahead.
Okay, anyway. So, I appreciate this. Okay, so like that is the basic of intention with this failure and success. It's wired into our brain. I don't see why you can't see it as physical.
I see there being a conflict with it, right? I don't see how we can have a system that's entirely physically deterministic, right? So you can view the brain as like some weird dynamic network on this convoluted freaking topological space, right? That's essentially what it's doing.
Good. I don't know where that would get you, but go ahead.
Right, but you can model it as being this like weird network of connections.
I'm telling you about actual connections that we know about, things that we know about the brain. Okay.
No,
I'm not talking about some topological space here. I'm telling you that this is how your cortex works.
No, I get that, but I'm saying you can simplify the brain to being this kind of network of interactions, right?
Why would you do that?
Because a lot of that is noise. Like that's very hard to like account for like mathematically or trying to model within like some mathematical framework.
Okay, but yeah, they're working on it though. You understand?
Yeah, but I mean, the mathematical structure is defining this like deterministic network that essentially there's a process. Whenever I give you an input, you know, the rest of the outputs are determined for the entirety of the network. But that doesn't appear to be the case with the brain, right? Because with the brain, there's this weird probability thing happening where like at each synapse, at each like junction between like neurons, there's a chance that the neuron responds properly to its neighbor or that it doesn't respond properly to its neighbor. Right? Like there's a sense in which it can fail or it can succeed. Whereas a dynamical network can't do that. Right? A dynamical network just obeys the set of, equations that define it.
Okay, but wait a second. Defining it as a failure is assuming an intention.
Well,
we're talking about a brain in a natural state without intention. Believe me, it does exactly what it's supposed to 100% every time, whether you think it failed or not.
I don't.
It's following the rules of the universe.
Right, physics.
Right. When I reach for a glass of water, though, and I don't reach it for whatever reason, though, that's not. I wouldn't attribute that to a success.
Yeah, but that's how we're valuing it, right?
Well, I'm valuing it in the sense that certain connections that need to be made, like within this complex circuit, are made. But there's cases where that's true. I can reach for a glass of water right next to me, and I can do that fine. But other times it's not true, right? And that's kind of like the weird aspect of the brain. It's this probabilistic network instead of this discrete network.
Yeah, we kind of know that. I mean, it's there's more than like neural nets basically work through like when we train up a neural net to identify something, we never know what the fuck is going on here. I mean, this is like tensor calculus in the middle, right? But the result is that you put an input in here and you either recognize the letter A or you don't. So it's true or false, but that's all physical. So I mean, the failure in the
that's the conflict, right? So
the thing is that, okay, if you fail, the way you train up a neural net, so if I got a weird A, that I can't recognize, is that I feed back failure into the system, and then it rewires and keeps trying again. So it has some metric. Just like I said, when I lift my hand, okay, my eyes and my proprioceptive network tells me whether or not I succeeded in doing it. If I don't succeed, this whole little network right here fails to fire and something else happens, and then it rewires. So it keeps going back until it succeeds. So I mean, that's how your brain works. We fucking know that part, and that's all entirely physical. I mean, this neural network is physical. We can model it with silicon, and we have. And we got that like galloping fucking horse thing that somebody had on a video the other day.
Here's the thing. It doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't seem to make sense to say that a dynamical network can fail.
Yeah, but it does fail. Basically, there is a feedback loop that tells you whether or not it succeeded or failed, whether the desired result is there or not. So if it's not there, it retrains the network. It does something else.
A dynamical network can only do what it does, right? I mean, it can only be given an input at some node and then essentially react based upon that initial condition and eventually reach, some stable equilibrium or some semi-stable equilibrium.
That's what I'm saying. We need to be careful when we say it succeeded or failed or is true or false, because that's a value after the fact.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, that's how we train up neural networks, is we have a feedback that goes back in and tells it whether or not it was a success or a failure. So there is a metric, and I think it's built into our body too, because there's basically, I mean, the thing is, it starts out so atomically, this buildup of these layers, right? Because at some point, I mean, how in the fuck do we know that this is the result we want, right?
I mean, I do have a quick question to what Serb said. I agree with him that we're assigning a value judgment after the fact. But say you have two people, say you have two people, one who's I'll be right back.
I mean,
What was that?
Here's another question. I mean, under your view, and here's a really convoluted situation. Like neuroplasticity, it's a pain in the ass. Because
I wouldn't. Careful what you wish for.
No, because we already agree that there's a network and there's interactions with that network, and it's crazy, and there's a notion of success and failure by whether or not some electrochemical trail is traced out properly or not. Essentially, is what we're talking about. But what makes it worse is the structure of that network changes over time, right? And it attempts to change in such a way that certain interactions occur more strongly or more frequently, right, and more reliably.
Yeah, it acquires the universe.
Okay, but the question kind of becomes, the word "no" is kind of unusual to use here, but I'll use it anyway. How does the brain know how to change its network in such a way that when you repeat this game, that what you want to have actualized is actualized?
Yeah.
Right? How does it change in such a way to minimize failure?
That is the interesting part, right? Okay, so basically, I'm trying to move my arm, right?
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I needed to do something, but like what I was trying.
Christ immutable. You start talking, and then all of a sudden, it's like, whoop, I'm going away, and then you come back. And it's like,
no, hang on.
Okay, I love you.
The doorbell the doorbell was ringing because the you know what, I'll tell you the story later, but
Okay.
basically to Serb's point, about something, whether it misfires or it doesn't, it doesn't work. It's a value judgment after the fact. Say you have two people, one who's normal, for lack of a better word, who can better move into their, in their environment, right? They can walk, they can do whatever, and then you have another person who's, for some reason, their minds misfire, and they try to grab a glass, but because their perception is wrong, you know what I mean, they can't grab it, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
All I'm trying to do is say each individual, neuron, all the little particles and everything in your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I got that.
Yeah, the feedback loop comes in after we've valued something and didn't achieve it,
Right?
And you feed back.
Yeah,
it's not like it didn't physically fail. It just emotionally failed or something.
Well, I mean, you could make an argument that it fit. Jesus Christ, I agree with you that that both people or governed by the laws of physics. But I would argue one guy is able to do something and the other guy isn't. There's a clear failure of physics there, even though they both. Jesus Christ, this is complicated. But you get the point, sir. Everyone gets the point, right?
Yeah. Well,
speed. Let me use me as an example. Okay, you have 20/20 vision. I have 2200 vision. Okay, you're better suited to see the world. I'm not. Moving on.
Okay, so there's an interesting little jelly roll. It's interesting to me that a newborn calf falls on the ground and starts to try to stand up right away, and pretty much pulls it off within 24 hours. I mean, that is a fucking amazing thing, because what he's doing is he's building this synaptic strength, and calling that network in order to be able to stand up. But what causes him to want to raise his hand in the first place and know where the failure success point is on raising his hand, right? So there has to be almost. What's that?
Out of personal interest, I like the example of wolves better, because with wolves, curiously, wolves are born blind, right? But their sense of smell is fucking insane. And essentially, the first 2-3 weeks of their lives, they're blind until they figure out how to see. What they end up doing is when they learn how to see, it's not that important, because they're essentially the way they've learned to navigate their environment is by smell rather than sight.
Yeah.
And so smell is the primary
smell is
the primary enforcer of success or failure rather than sight.
How much of that do they have at the in the first few days of their life when they're still blind and just sucking on mama? I mean,
Smell?
other than I mean, what are they actually doing with that olfactory sense, basically?
Well, I think they're probably trying to distinguish. I think they're trying to associate various smells with various individuals.
Mama's boob.
Well, mama's teats, but yes.
Yes. Boob. Wolves have boobs, don't they? Oh, well, maybe that's anyway. Okay.
They have mammary glands.
I saw this internet site. Anyway, I won't. Okay, so that's what they're smelling is milk, right? First, that's the only thing they care about. So as they're smelling their mother, maybe I don't know, how much of that is important, but that would be a really good system to look at, when you're trying to understand the acquisition of knowledge. And what I'm wondering about is with that forward projecting neuron, okay, how does this one become the goal? How does that become the criteria or the measure for success or failure that rewires this network as a neural network to make it happen, that sort of thing? And I think that has to do with some sort of central drive, that comes out of this. Basically, there's this whole core in your brain that it's the reticular activating system that's in your brainstem that makes you wake up every day and starts you moving around. And when you're a baby, all you do is flail. You flail your limbs and you become activated. So it becomes an active network. And through that, basically, you acquire this knowledge of the world. So I know what failure is. The very first failure is poking yourself in the eye or hurting yourself by hitting something, right? So, I mean, there's a pain feedback.
I think you could argue in a way, like, and I'll continue with the example of a wolf, that like success or failure is kind of that the way something succeeds isn't genuine necessarily. Like it's determined. There's obviously an environmental variable to it, but it also seems to be kind of utilizing a form of mimicry. So, like a baby wolf, like that's newly born or like almost newly born, is paying attention mostly like to its mother, and trying to find food.
And I've never had a puppy look at and do anything but move toward the milk, toward the tip, right, or toward the warmth of the mother. They can't see them for one thing yet, so they haven't acquired sight. So, but
after a certain period of time, like after a week or two, they start to learn how to hunt. But you got to think, okay, how the hell is that working? I think it's probably that the neural networks are the networks are changing focus on certain environmental inputs. So they're paying more attention to, for instance, like the motion and sounds of other things, and trying to mimic that in a way that's like recreatable, or to seek out something like that.
I bet there are people that are just writing massive volumes on this somewhere, on animal development, that sort of thing. I haven't tuned in for about 5 years to see what's going on in this field. But it's anyway, we're coming up on the weather report, and I am fucking burning out. But can you see how interesting some of this shit is when you approach it at this level?
I don't deny that it's interesting. I just think it's utilizing like a ton of. I just think it's borrowing a ton of stuff like from philosophy to get there.
You do. It's neuroscience. We're talking about neuroscience. Okay, this is a hippocampus. This is it's like a jelly roll at the base of your brain, and it's called allocortex, which means old cortex. So very early mammals and reptiles basically had that as their brain. And then we slowly created more and more cortex out here, and the cortical layers out here, and they kind of wrapped around. But one of the things that happens here is during the day, you record all these little markers in this allocortex, and each one is associated with things like dopamine and oxytocin and different neurotransmitters that if it gets the right cocktail of neurotransmitters, then it becomes something that wants to be kept, right? And that becomes integrated into your cortex while you sleep. And this is pretty widely accepted theory of how, your daily knowledge ends up integrated into your cortex. But when Cerberus, you said something about emotion, or, we have this emotional feeling of, value. That is very, very basic and very, it starts out at the zygote level, these dopamine rushes. And by the time the brain is, pretty much all the neurons have pushed out and grown into where they're going to go, this dopamine system, which is emotion, like emotional power. Like if something happens to you today that has a good heavy shot of emotion involved in it, there's a very good chance that it's going to be integrated long-term into your memory as either an episodic memory or a skill memory or a bit of knowledge, that sort of thing. So anyway, emotion has a fuck ton to do with all of this. So,
yeah,
but anyway,
praises in the side chat, or praises.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we have an idealist in the side chat, or What the fuck is he?
Yeah,
Substance idealist?
I need to address something, Danny. When I said I was trying to say that you were saying speed is a coward and using an hand-on attack rather than dealing with the argument. That's all I was saying. There was no need to call me stupid. Moving on.
I don't know. We can have the weather report now instead of talking about my personal, problems. If you don't mind. Oh yeah, just go ahead and what's happening out in the universe, or maybe Danny could say his piece and whatever. I don't know. You guys can talk.
Okay, what am I allowed to say and not say so you don't kick me out? I just need to learn that so you don't unjustifiably kick me.
Yeah, if you don't do any ad homs against the owner of the channel, normally you don't get kicked. It's sort of a rule.
Wait, I didn't insult you when you kicked me just now.
You called him a
coward.
Before.
No, yeah, I said, listen to what I said.
Yeah, I kicked you because you said something that I thought was, oh fuck.
What was it?
I remember.
You can't even remember.
At least what I assumed was you came in. He said, you were at once a zygote, and then you wanted to get understanding about what a person is.
That's very relevant.
No, instead of understanding what he's talking about as a zygote, and that we could track you back to a zygote.
You can track me back to the Big Bang.
Right. All you wanted to do was argue a definition. Right. That's my point. All you want to do was argue a definition. He was just trying to talk about the actual facts of reality.
I don't know what that means, right? Look, the point is that if someone is just saying that a zygote is a necessary condition,
Danny.
I'm explaining it to you. I'm like Darth, right? I'm going to explain it to you. If someone is saying that it's a necessary condition that you exist for a zygote to exist in order that you exist, that applies to all sorts of things, right? So that can't be a condition for personal identity, right? If he's not talking about personal identity, he's not talking about, he's using a different sense of the word you, right?
Who the fuck was talking about personal identity? That was
when you said you were a zygote, were you talking about my Danny?
Wait, you don't think people could talk about personhood as if it's like a quality beyond a singular human being?
Look, that's called the biological view of personal identity. It's a fringe view. Most people, even physicalists, take the psychological view of personal identity. 12% of philosophers take biological view of personal identity.
Right, so you're arguing he should use a different definition than the one he was using.
No, I'm not arguing that he should use words differently. I'm saying that
what are you disagreeing with him on?
I wasn't. I'm saying, look, I don't consider myself to be a zygote at any point. Okay. In any sense of the word.
Then the conversation's over. You just don't consider a person.
Yeah,
he's not using the word the same way you are.
I could be an idiot. I could be wrong. He kicked me for it. I didn't insult him.
He kicked you for being pedantic.
Why? What's the argument for me being pedantic? I was just saying that the biological view of personal identity is flawed, and it is a view that a lot of these internet atheist evolutionary people take, and I'm saying it's very, very flawed. And you're calling me pedantic?
Cerberus, just give me the word. Just give me the word.
Okay. No. You told me that I would only be kicked if I would insult people.
No, I'm going to answer.
What am I allowed to say on this channel?
Keep on talking and say more. So you came in. He said a word. You disapproved of its use, identified it as a minor error, which is what.
There's a major error.
No, and then tried to argue that no, I'm not a person, just based on having a different definition.
No, look, it could be that we're using the terms differently, but if he's using a different sense of you, no matter if he refers to body, there's going to be a problem. If he's not referring to personal, like personhood, that's to say web of beliefs, right, mental states, then if he's not referring to body, then I don't really know what he could be referring to. So it's not a matter of using the terms differently, it's a matter of coherence.
Well, it was pretty clear what he was talking about.
Well, then you tell me.
Personhood was basically equivalent to zygote.
Wait, so he's saying that a zygote was a zygote.
Wait, and then you could track that to a person currently.
Well, that's true of the Big Bang. But that's true of the Big Bang.
Yeah. So what?
So it's a trivial point to make.
Oh no. So, yeah, exactly. It's trivial to try to correct his definition because you want a different one.
No, I'm saying that doesn't progress the conversation. That's what I mean by trivial.
You know what also doesn't progress the conversation? Being pedantic about a definition.
Changing the subject. Is it yes or no? Is saying that if he's using the word there to refer to the way you just said, how does that progress the conversation in terms of what knowledge is? You answer that question. I dare you.
Matter?
There you go. You're not going to answer the question.
Yeah, because I'm not bothered.
Sit down.
I'm not bothered about him using a definition he likes. I'm bothered about you being pedantic about a definition.
Once again, if the goal of the conversation is get to the nature of knowledge, you can tell me how that utterance that Spade made
why does it
progresses
matter?
the conversation.
Why does a conversation have to be 100% efficient?
I'm not. Is that what I said?
It seems to be what you're implying.
I'm saying that what Speed said in terms of me being a zygote, or what, at some point being a zygote, is either trivial, incoherent, and we can move past it. Okay, it has nothing. It's not going to support any view. It's not going to support his view. It's not going to support my view, because if you understand him, how he's using the terms, it's a trivial point to our claims.
Right, it's trivial.
So moving on, next proposition. That's what I wanted to do.
Exactly, it's trivial. Then why correct it?
The correction is that it's trivial.
But people already knew that.
Let me. Since you're not getting this, I'm going to give. Look, if we're asking the question, what's 2 + 2, and then you say I ate breakfast, or breakfast is breakfast. Okay, I'm going to say that's trivial, irrelevant. Moving on to 2 + 2. That's a correction.
Yeah, but
so zygote was trivial? Is that what he's saying?
Yes.
I just want to point out, Danny did not do what he's claiming.
Okay.
Danny came in and didn't say, "Oh, well, that's trivial. Let's move on." He came in and said, "Well, that trivial thing's wrong. That's not true. That's not what I am."
Yeah. So, what was trivial about my saying, "Okay, we start out as a zygote"? I mean, wasn't that kind of like my opening, sort of framing of the problem?
Yeah, all you're doing is acknowledging that we can track a person from point A to point B.
But it doesn't progress the conversation. I want to ask Speed, what do I have to do to not get kicked? I'm asking you because you just kicked me when you just stipulated that as long as I don't insult anyone, I won't get kicked. What do I have to do?
I mean, you did kind of insult him by saying "sit down." You know what I mean? That's kind of an insult, because it's like it's placing yourself above Cerberus.
Okay,
no offense, but
I'm trying to tell Danny how not to get kicked.
All right, go ahead.
Just tone it down a little bit, dude. Back, just calm fucking down. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Okay, Speed. Hold on.
That's not informative, Speed. You need to tell me specifically.
Can I say something really quick?
Okay. Calm down is not informative to you, Danny?
No, it is. But Speed, I want to say that the next time you complain about
I'm calm. I'm just very, very.
All right, never mind.
Hey, I got a suggestion. How about we use that feedback loop in his brain and just hide him every time he crosses the line, and he'll learn the boundaries.
Awesome.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all are just interested in you're not interested in the conversation. The point is that. Let me speak. Excuse me. I was talking. Look.
Jesus.
Wait. Okay, what were you saying, Midnight?
I was trying to say that the next time people, people want to rib me for getting frustrated, I will point to Danny. Okay, moving on. Finally, I got that out.
Yeah, that didn't contribute anything to the conversation. But what I'm trying to say is this. If we're asking about questions like about what is knowledge, what is the nature of the mind, okay? Starting from the proposition, because remember, before you gave that proposition, I asked, okay, let's go proposition by proposition. As we want to go through the propositions that support your claim, your conclusion, or at least that you think supports your conclusion. I'm saying that no matter how you interpret the proposition that I was once a zygote or you were once a zygote, that won't help us in securing your conclusion. Either it's going to be trivial or incoherent. And then I was kicked for that.
What was my conclusion? What was my conclusion?
The conclusion is as to what knowledge is?
I didn't really conclude anything, did I?
This has been a project for the last week with Immutable and Leo. We were trying to get to scientism, knowledge, how we come to knowledge, how we conceptualize the world. That's what we're talking about.
And what did I conclude? What was my conclusion?
Well, you concluded scientism.
I concluded scientism.
Knowledge you've been trying to argue for scientism, and I'm saying,
let's go. What you're doing? You're talking about the method that I'm using to discover knowledge.
No, it's a conclusion.
I'm saying that there's an argument that you're trying to get through to support the conclusion that therefore scientism. Okay. Now I'm saying, I said, for those people with short goldfish memories, I said, let's go through proposition, okay, in order to see whether this gets you the conclusion. And then the first proposition you gave was, I was once a zygote or you were once a zygote. And I'm just saying that either that's incoherent.
Wait. So you thought that was the conversation I was having when I said I was once a zygote?
That's how you responded when I asked, let's go through the first proposition. That was your response.
The first, okay, you came in and you said, let's go through the first proposition.
Yes.
Maybe has it occurred to you that the first proposition for what? What was the
for the
framework?
conclusion?
For the conclusion of scientism. Holy
yeah,
crap.
God, look.
Okay, so you and Immutable.
Therapist, why don't you white knight? He needs your help.
You and Immutable were the only ones.
I don't think he needs my help, but I
okay. Immutable and Danny were the only ones talking about scientism at that point. At that point, I was having a talk with everybody about knowledge and about knowledge in the brain and a biological knowledge. And we were way down in the weeds. And I wasn't talking about scientism. So when you came in and said, what is your first proposition? Number one, I didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. Number two, zygote had nothing to do with the question you just asked about scientism. So it's a different discussion. Don't you get it?
Yeah.
Try to get
No, for you, it's intimately related. How we
Jesus Christ, will you just fucking let somebody else
he's
say
trying to respond to what you said, and I mean,
yeah, but there's an
why are you kicking Immutable?
Oh
like
God.
this is
there's
tyranny.
An explanation that needs
It's
to be
absolute tyranny.
So
I have to
technically, what he said when you said you were a zygote or I was a zygote, that is a proposition. But he's literally trying to frame what he's talking about. Did you see? It
doesn't matter to the.
He's literally trying to frame out a timeline because you saw the timeline up there, and he's trying to talk about when does knowledge start.
Right.
He has a outside point on each edge, and he's trying to map out where it is.
Yeah.
Right. Baby knowing where America is when you're trying to navigate Africa isn't that important. But when you want to know where it is in relation to everything else, you kind of need the map with America on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wasn't having the scientism discussion when I said you start out as a zygote, and these guys apparently think I was. And I think that's where we went.
To be fair, the stream is called Scientism Rules.
Okay, so let me respond to defeat. It doesn't matter. I could have been wrong about scientism or the framing of what the conclusion was. The point is that when you said that I start out as a zygote or you start as a zygote, that won't support any conclusion that you're making. Any.
Oh no.
Right? And Carabas agrees with me. It's a trivial point.
Yeah, which is why correcting it is stupid.
I don't know why you got kicked, but okay.
I mean, can I just say that this whole thing has been one giant clusterfuck?
Yeah, and keep in mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to say it's been one giant clusterfuck, and we went down so many avenues that the fucking point was lost, and this is why people really dislike philosophy.
Carabas,
I'm talking.
Carabas. Yeah, look, I was kicked, and I want to respond to Carabas. I want to respond to Carabas.
Carabas.
I'm just going to say that I agree that it was trivial, but that doesn't mean that I think it was wrong, or they couldn't do it that way.
No, but I mean, definitionally, it doesn't contribute to the conversation being trivial.
Yeah, well, I mean, other than it just provides a framework in which he's trying to work inside of. That's what I was trying to point out. I mean, we could have talked about
Danny's point is still
okay. Okay, I just want to say something really quick. To me, this entire conversation he's been arguing what the definition of is.
Yeah,
okay,
he was literally just trying to describe his graph.
Like, how do you define Thursday? So are we going over?
Okay, guys, I can't throw Danny in until I'm ready to get out. So I'm going to take a little break, and you guys go ahead and you can chat, you can listen to Danny. If somebody wants me to boot him, just start yelling foreskin, and I'll notice because I'm going to be walking around doing stuff. So
Okay.
Is that fair?
So wait, hold on. How many times should we yell foreskin? Because once, twice, like.
Well, I guess until I respond. So, and that's only if you want me to boot Danny or text me, because he's on fire today, and I don't want to deal with this shit. I was having a conversation about knowledge, so biological knowledge.
I mean, I can tell you. I know. I can tell you this right now that that once we do that plan I suggested in summer, I don't want Danny in there. I mean, I know this is your channel, but
yeah, okay,
yeah, because it's like,
yeah, he's got to start trying to slow down and behave and not overtalk people. So anyway.
Yeah, you better behave, because you can just stay ignorant if you're going to kick him continually, right? But Carabas, the point is that the correction is it can be pronounced either way. The point, Carabas, is that the correction was that it's trivial. That is the correction, right? If someone is trying to argue that God exists and they start out with A is A, the correction there could be just like, hey, that's granted, that's trivial, that doesn't progress the conversation. That is a kind of correction.
Yeah, a completely unnecessary one.
What do you mean? If you're saying, look, if I'm a theist and you're asking me for an argument and I say, okay, well, first premise A is A, you could just be like, well, that's trivial. Why would you even say that?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Why would I even say it? But that doesn't make it.
I'm telling you, that's a correction. I'm saying that and then I was booted for saying something like that.
You only correct things that are wrong, right?
No, that's false. You can correct things that are inefficient.
I mean, how is acknowledging the law of identity?
Look, if you ask me for an argument, I start counting to 100. I'm not wrong in counting appropriately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just totally irrelevant. It's not progressing the conversation, and that's best case scenario. In actuality, excuse me, sir, you're interrupting. In actuality, Speed was probably saying something incoherent. I'm granting the coherence of it. And the only way it can be coherent is that if it's trivial, because things that are trivially true are coherent. That's granting that. And I really am inclined to think that what Speed thinks when he uttered that, Speed thought when he uttered that, was just incoherent.
You're
so
free to
just sit down. He kicked me for a stupid reason, and you white knighting him for him just makes him look worse.
It kicked you for a great reason.
What was the reason?
Because you're making this whole thing about a triviality that you admit that's trivial.
No, the correction is that what he's saying was a triviality with respect to the discussion. Is the correction trivial, or is what he said is trivial?
Yeah, how could a correction of something trivial but not wrong be anything but trivial?
I told you. I just gave you an example. Inefficiency you can correct inefficiencies.
Inefficiency.
Do you know how to distinguish? Do you know the distinction between practically rational and rational? Have you ever heard of that distinction?
You understand that what you're arguing, it's not analogous, right? He's describing a chart.
I'm saying it's trivial and doesn't progress the conversation, and I was booted for that when that was a valid response to what. If we're trying to consider the premises of his argument, let's say the propositions that form the argument, then it's perfectly fine to say that one of the premises is not needed. We move on. It doesn't matter. Nothing happened. Nothing follows from that.
But you didn't actually come out and say it was trivial.
I'm granting that. I actually think it's incoherent, right? But Speed is not going. Speed is not going to engage with me.
How is describing a chart accurately incoherent?
No. I'm saying that the proposition that I was a zygote is incoherent or trivial, and I'm inclined to think that the way that he meant it was incoherent. You're not following.
No, I am following. You're just not going where he was going with it.
What does that even mean? Do you agree with everything I just said? What are you talking about right now?
At the proposition, he was describing a chart. He was writing on his little blackboard.
Wait, no, but the question that Immutable and I had for him was, what are the propositions that form the argument? That was what we were asking for. So you're saying he was asking a different question?
No, what I'm saying is he wasn't answering your request. He was describing he was writing.
Yeah, if I'm a teacher and I ask what 2 + 2 is, and someone says I had eggs for breakfast, I'm going to call them out.
But you're not his teacher.
Yes, I am.
Oh my God.
Speed is absolutely ignorant when it comes to these things.
Who cares? That doesn't make
I do. I care. Yes, it does.
Care all you want. He doesn't have to because you're not his teacher.
Yeah, he doesn't have to. You could be abusive towards your teacher.
Foreskin.
Oh boy. What makes you think speed wants to be taught?
Okay, no, hold on.
Yeah, he's not my fucking teacher.
I need to say something. Okay, Danny, wanting to teach people is great, right? It's one of those great professions that unfortunately doesn't really get a lot of respect as respect it deserves. And money wise, it's shit. Cerberus can attest to that, I think. But just claiming to be someone's teacher, that's no.
Yeah.
I just
a teacher is accepted by the pupil.
Exactly. Thank you.
By the teacher.
Yes, there you go, sir.
Yeah. Anyway. Oh fuck! Moving on. What the fuck?
Danny has a raging case of I think someone's wrong on the internet.
Yeah, I know. It's just
Basically.
pretty bad. It's a bad thing.
Come to bed. Come to bed. Come to bed, Danny. Not now, dear. If someone's wrong on the internet, I have to respond. By the way, I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you for Tyrone. Okay, dear.
Christ almighty. What a shitstorm.
Yep.
I do like that phrases out there yelling foreskin.
Praises yelling foreskin? No shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Respond to what Danny's saying out there. I mean, I already faced you. You have nothing but being pedantic and arguing about trivial things. Why would we need you back in here?
I know. It's like, I don't know. Maybe, I guess he misunderstood I misunderstood that those two came in and were wanting me to fucking create some kind of a premise argument or some fucking monstrosity. And that wasn't what I was doing at all. It's like, I don't know. I just missed it.
Okay, all in favor of banning Danny from this channel for life. Say aye.
No, I'd like him to come in and spice things up.
I know. I'm just fucking around.
I like it when someone who's really into philosophy comes in and I go, well, that's just kind of stupid, isn't it? And then
But see, sir, I said this before and I'll say it again. Danny is one of the reasons people hate philosophy. One,
yeah.
My first criticism I ever gave Danny was he really tries. It seems like he tries to not understand what is being said and tries to push on what his gut reaction is to what's being said.
Well, he likes to drive it around to his point of view and his particular what he wants to talk about, and oftentimes that is not what I want to talk about. And I have a continual problem with that, where sometimes I don't want to talk about what other people want to talk about. I don't know.
And some life advice for Danny out there, and he's saying, Cerberus X, you look bad right now to anyone that can reason.
Now he's on you.
The projection is strong in that one. I'm sorry, but that's just...
It's not so much. I'm not trying to get at the projection, but if you actually feel the need to say it, that's because I think you're aware that it doesn't actually appear that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, Randolph, heading off. I had some work to do. Oh, I see. Anyway, what else is happening?
By the way, I have a lot of books. That's all I'm saying. Moving on.
Do you want to play the part? Do you want to play LPP stream where Maddox got triggered and apparently where he thinks that knowledge is like simply knowing a factoid that another person doesn't know?
Do you know where that is? The part where last night.
Wait.
Yeah,
the shit they did last night. Let's see.
Is it that specific? Sorry.
Well.
Is it really
kind of move the situation up a bit? Maddox has been going on about two things: ribosomal pausing and some like new like experimental technique in chemistry. And he's trying to claim like that he understand that because he can read about these topics and he can pronounce them, that he's more intelligent than other people. That he's knowledgeable on the fields themselves.
Yeah, even I don't make that claim.
Well, Maddox does because he's special.
I mean,
calling Dr. Dunning, calling Dr. Kruger.
God damn it!
Yeah, he's got the smartest man in the room syndrome for sure.
Well, yeah, he's something.
Yeah, I don't know. It just gets kind of boring, but he was going on. What the hell was he saying? He said, "Oh, they said he just popped into the stream he sat in. We were talking about him, and of course, I suppose that's fair. We talk about him a lot. So anyway, and we were saying that he had him and his cohorts have a high school level knowledge of all of this stuff, and then he says, and they say that I found something that they don't understand. Yeah. If you read enough papers, you'll find shit that we don't, that we never heard of. Right. And that was his whole thing, is that the two things are not compatible, because because he knows, or he found papers with things that we haven't heard of. That means that he has an in-depth knowledge of the entire field. Did I explain that? I don't know.
I think you explained it.
I'm burning out. Anyway, I'm trying to plug in my fucking microscope. Got a bunch of bugs. Anyway, we can play some of it if you want. I got a few timestamps, where I'm not sure what I timestamped exactly, but we could play it because I am actually incoherent right now. Completely.
I agree.
Yeah.
You were brought up quite a bit. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's
we were.
Yeah, and it was kind of really spread out too. You were talked about quite a bit.
And Orge was in there, and they were talking about that young Earth thing, basically. And I think he could have done a little better job of explaining what we were talking about, because we were basically, and I think Orge agrees with me that if the Earth had been created 6,000 years ago, it cannot account for all the rock formations we see in the world at all.
Right, but it wouldn't imply a God.
Well, it would imply that something weird happened, right? Like something non-natural happened.
Yeah, it'd be an unknown natural process.
Yeah, last Thursdayism, perhaps, something like that. So, I mean, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said God, but something spooky, like really spooky bed hair spooky. So,
yeah,
that's all I was saying. But they I don't know what the fuck. Let's see here. I'm trying to switch over and put the stream up. I have several things that I need to do before I do that. Need better tech, guys. Share.
So today I got 2 free bookshelves. I've been filling up. Ugh.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive this weather report. Okay, so I got the screen up. I think we're ready to roll. I don't know what I got here. I just did a bunch of timestamps when people come in and crap like that. So
anyway. Speed of Pudding's channel just for pure entertainment. And I get a good chuckle. It's like stand-up comedy almost. Just go in there. It's like, man, I seriously gotta go. But the whole intervention they've been doing with Speed of Pudding and trying to get him to overcome his obsession with scientism this past couple of days, oh man, it's reaching levels of.
I mean, his laugh is kind of weird. It's like, sorry, Maddox, but that's a weird laugh.
It's not worth watching. I'm in there a lot, and it gets dumb real fast.
Oh no! So you don't want to go and watch for any length of time. It's like you bounce in for 4 or 5 minutes, and just start cracking up at the what's going on, and then leave because you can't take it anymore, and bounce back in, and another 4 or 5 minutes, oh man, it's to get some chuckles and then bounce out again. It's great. It's great entertainment.
I don't mind listening to certain atheist channels, but I don't know. It started to devolve. That whole show began to devolve. I'm just like, some of the people that they're inviting, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't,
Who's he talking about, do you think?
Yeah.
I think it might have been when Nathan started drawing him like Michael started drawing Sal in the likeness of Michael Jackson. That might have been one of the straws that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, Sal has a real problem with the people on this channel. That was the argument that I got into it with him the other day. Not in this stream, the stream the day before. That was exactly why I got in the argument with him.
Yeah. Do you have some sort of history with Sal, David?
I do not, but I do not. That's what kind of shocked me. I mentioned that earlier to you today. the funny thing about it is apparently Sal seems to hold grudges for quite a while, and for trivial things. I think the reason why he actually jumped on me, and it wasn't in this stream, it was the stream before this one. I'm pretty sure
we're looking at it, David, right now.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I'll tell you what happened. Well, he jumped on me. I think I made a comment. Somebody made a comment in the stream that, we shouldn't take Pine Creek. It was when Pine Creek was in, I believe. Oh, we shouldn't take them serious, whatever. And I put, we shouldn't take anybody serious in this room. A bunch of referring to the rest of the theists in the room. And then Sal jumped right on me, and he said that he was very upset with me because I called him dishonest. And he was referring to way back when he had his debate with Matt Dillahunty, which was back. He actually, I think, put it in there, which was, I think, January 6th he put. I'd have to double check that, but that's probably correct. I mean, that's how long ago that was, right?
Well,
so
was that what was the topic, the argument, the Pascal's wager?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Wow, that's a while back.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys read this? Is it clear, or is it too small yet? Because it's hard to fucking get Excel to do it right. But anyway,
have you got like one of those magnifying glass apps? Oh, you're on a Mac, aren't you?
Yeah.
I can read it fine. I just expanded the page, and I can read it fine. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, he said, you accused me of dishonesty after the Dillahunty debate. I have a pretty low opinion of you for what you said. Right.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah. He jumped right on that and said he had a low opinion of me. And I basically said, well, the feeling is mutual. I have a low opinion of you too, and like I said, I think what happened is that, during that debate, I did make comments. I thought he was being very dishonest, which in my opinion, I thought he was. And I certainly wasn't the only one. There was many, many other people in that stream that felt the same way. And that's a hard thing to determine. Obviously, it was my opinion. I certainly believe that Sal is sincere on his beliefs. There's no question about that. But I think given the circumstance of the discussion, I thought he was being dishonest.
Yeah, so anyway. I think Sal has kind of a problem with criticism.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back with your and Sal's relationship speed?
What the fuck was it? I criticized him for something, and then he said he was annoyed with me.
Said you were going to kick his ass, semantically, and then he
I said that, okay, so we did this whole talk on fitness, we came up and I posted a couple of them, and the feedback I got is that I kicked his butt pretty hard on fitness, right? And he didn't really have anywhere to go with it. And I also kicked his ass on signs and lines. And so then him and Standing for Truth clipped out this little part out of context. We were having a conversation about the direction of evolution. And I said that it could be that our minds, that getting dumber is naturally selected for, right? And that would be a good thing. And then I said, it could be that humans having no minds at all made us more reproductively successful. And that was the point I was making. Well, they clipped that out and they laughed about it, and they're still playing it and laughing about it. So anyway, in response to that, we were talking about it, and I said, I kicked his ass on fitness. And when I said that, our whole relationship changed. And I don't know why, because I'd said things like that to him before. And, we had a good cordial relationship. And I said it to him, almost jokingly, come on, I'll kick your butt again, but this time somehow it all got personal. And then maybe I think I criticized him for going on the Christian streams late at night and saying kind of shitty things about us, and I pointed that out. And so the whole thing devolved, and now none of them will talk to me at all, which is actually kind of peaceful. I don't know, but so I think that's the whole story, but he's doing the same thing with you. He says,
really?
What the fuck he's doing with David. So I said we don't have perfect knowledge, and then Dillahunty accused me of being dishonest for saying so. You're gullible to agree with him. You're complicit in his falsehood, right? What does that mean?
Well, who was you in reference to? Me or some other person?
Oh, David.
Yeah,
David?
to me. This is all
David
to me.
Lori.
Yeah, this is to me.
Yeah. You're
This
dishonest.
is a little argument I had with him. Yeah.
Well, look at this part. You're dishonest. I never had a chance to tell you until now. I was looking forward to finally having it out with you. And then what the fuck else? So then you said this is coming from a person who was well-known in his community for being dishonest. And then let's see. Reputation circulated by liars. You believe them. You're gullible. And you like believing lies. Lori Hayes, you still hang out in that cesspool of stupidity with the likes of John Peterson. Lori Hayes, do you still hang out in the cesspool of the stupidity with John Peterson, Speed of Sound, and friends? And then what would you come back with?
Where is it?
Oh, I personally seen it myself. Something Christians do all the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're trying to have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, well, I did what I did say. I can't seem to read it anyway. But anyway, what I was saying is you seem to have a problem with the people I associate with. And
you think you're better.
Right. There lies your problem. You seem to think you're better than everybody. And
Yeah.
that's a typical Christian thing to do. You're superior Christian values or, along those lines. And like I said, I was shocked because to me, even now, I consider myself kind of a nobody. I mean, I don't go on a lot of live streams. I don't frequent, not too many people know me at all. I mean, I'm probably getting to be known a little bit I think what happened is we discussed that several days after his Matt Dillahunty debate, or maybe even the next day. I think I jumped on the stream and we were discussing it. And I think I probably did say, yeah, in that particular circumstance, or that part of the argument, I thought he was being dishonest. And I think that's where he heard me actually say it. And it was probably the day after that debate. I'd be willing to bet.
Yeah.
And so he's held that grudge since then.
Right. Yeah.
And I know I didn't say very much.
And you can't be the only one that criticized him.
Like I said, there was tons and tons of people that said that during the modern day debate. Yeah. And you know what's really funny about it too is that yesterday I happened to click on Pine Creek's channel when he was doing a review on the channel on Matt X's review the other day. He was doing like a review on it after the fact, and he started talking about Sal, and somebody wrote in the thing, yeah, I think he's kind of slimy and dishonest. So he has the reputation, I'm sorry to say, so that's what I was referring to. And somebody else wrote it in Pine Creek's, chat yesterday. So, and it wasn't even brought up. That person just wrote it in there. So Stephanie had a bookmark 4144. Was that yesterday?
Yeah, she said the latest one. I assume she means yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. Then it's this one right here, right? Yeah. Okay. Let me play that.
That I went through way back 20 years ago. That was a succinct answer. He didn't dodge. He just told it like it was. And I said, that's exactly why I didn't become an atheist.
I don't want to take over anything, but can I ask you another question?
Is that all right with you guys, LPP? I don't want to monopolize.
No.
This is a good discussion. I'd much rather you guys have a good discussion than what was going on last night. So.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, I'll keep going then. Do you think so? I definitely 100% can visualize the room of scientists and atheists not having a good answer to that question, right? Because I believe it's a fair statement to say atheism doesn't have any doctrine. Every atheist has his own shade of belief. Would you say that Christians have, because Christians obviously have variety to the doctrine as well, but would you say it's more concrete? Like if you go to 10 different Christian groups, are you kind of always going to get the same answer to your question versus 100 different atheist groups? You probably won't.
Well, the thing was, I wasn't getting hardly any answers. So
you don't consider
I think what you said is more correct. I was just more astonished by the silence. The answer that I got is you make up your own meaning. I'm just like, okay, so then if that's the case, there are as many answers to this as there are people, and they're not really science-based or evidence-based. It's just you make it up yourself. And I said, I have a problem with that. Up until that point, I said, you guys are very logical. I appreciate the skepticism. But then for Christianity, there's certain, for Orthodox, what I would call Orthodox doctrine, yeah, you get the same answer for certain things. And, sometimes it's not very pleasant, but at least it's not subject to human will. And that was part of it. But the thing that really persuaded me was the study of intelligent design, creation science. I said,
okay, so basically he's saying he became a Christian because if you're an atheist, you can basically have any idea at all. Is that what he was saying?
Well, he was saying that he's looking for ultimate meaning, whatever ultimate means.
Right.
And for some reason, that's atheism's fault or whatever, that you have to find that meaning on your own. And that's a scary prospect, because what if you live your life out searching for meaning and never find satisfactory meaning? That's kind of a risk you take, but that's reality.
Yeah. I don't know.
But he also seems to be implying that the meaning you find as an atheist is kind of vacuous, though, as well, which is kind of weird. I don't know how he jumped. He jumped to that point.
And what they never do is say, okay, here's what meaning is like. Here's how I experience meaning in my life. Now let's compare it to an atheist who experiences meaning in their life and see how similar they are. Now they'll come up with some exception for themselves, which is I consider special pleading, that theirs is much, much better because it's the ultimate meaning, trademark, copyright, whatever, patent pending. But I think that if they looked at people's statements about their internal life, that they would become very similar.
Yeah, it always bothers me when they bring this meaning shit up. I mean, it's like it offends me. I mean, they're saying that my family doesn't mean anything to me. My cats don't mean anything to me. That my books don't mean anything to me. You guys don't mean anything to me. What the fuck are they saying? I mean, why do I have to ground it?
Don't mean anything to us,
Yeah, our children don't mean anything. What the fuck? They think we eat our young. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, it's just like, and that's what that's when the other day when I triggered Danny when I said, that being human, that it's basically filled with meaning. That's inherent in being a human being. For God's sake, almost every Hollywood movie has some sort of hope and meaning thing involved in it, right? And it's like, I mean, that's kind of what we're all about, right? As a species. I don't see what the problem is with. Do you guys know what I mean? I mean, doesn't it offend you when they claim we don't have any meaning?
Yeah.
Well, I don't get offended. I get, well, you know how you kind of laugh out loud at somebody's hypocrisy?
Oh yeah, you can
the lack of self-awareness or whatever.
You can either be offended or just laugh at them, one or the other.
I mean, it's just I don't care what they think about if they find my meaning to be vacuous or not, because really I don't expect them to be held to the same standard.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like I don't say that my reasons, for holding particular beliefs that I have, are reasons that you should accept my beliefs, right? I don't try to impose my beliefs on other people, because really that's not my place. But when you ask for my reasons about evolution or something like that, I'll give you them, and we can contest that all day long. But it's offensive to say that the reasons are vacuous or just irrelevant.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I guess it offends me because the meaning of my family and the people that I care about and the things that I care about. I mean, it's a very deep part of my life, right? And they're just pursuing it away like it doesn't exist because I don't believe in God. I mean, fuck you.
That's how they otherize you. Otherize.
Yeah. Otherize.
You,
yeah.
The other.
That's a good word. Who the hell came up with something. Oh fuck. Oh, codex pareidolia from yesterday. That's what Maddox has. He sees code and everything, that sort of thing. Anyway, I wrote down a few terms that I'm trying to use and remember. I should have wrote down who it's from. I forgot. God damn it. Anyway, moving on. So I got something at 53. I think it might be we might overlap a little bit.
The collapse of all this, if it turned out, like I think Danny asked in the question, if it turned out that the world was 3,000, 10,000, whatever years old, like what would happen? That would just collapse. Like that's impossible.
We covered this, didn't we? I think mutable.
I think so.
And basically, we decided that okay. So I wouldn't necessarily believe in. I certainly wouldn't believe in the Christian God, but I would believe that something weird was up. If geology happened to not be 4.5 billion years old, mostly from watching Nick Zentner in the last few months, and starting to learn a little bit about geology and looking at the process of sedimentation and metamorphic rocks. Young Earth creationism is just dead on arrival. I mean, if you read anything about geology, I don't understand. Like today, I think they have a geologist on Standing for Truth channel talking about young Earth. How in the fuck can he hold that opinion after having gone to college for geology? I don't get it.
Well, what some of these people say is either it's your education or your faith.
Yeah.
Because some people will completely disregard the education they received in order to defend a favored position. In this case, that's what some of these Christians do.
But I mean, if you're looking at like a 2,000 foot, layered rock cliff, right? And you're looking at that, and I guess you can imagine that the flood was just flying all over the place, and it slapped one layer of mud on top of another layer of mud. But where did it? I don't know. I mean, if the world was flying around like that, wouldn't shit get kind of like homogeneous and mixed up? I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, you'd expect a uniform layer, but you don't see it.
Right, and then you look at like geodes and agates and quartzite veins, where the quartz veins, where the rock is cracked and water over a long period of time deposited enough quartz that it plugged it up. I mean, that shit happens very slowly. And those giant, what are they, calcite crystals or something in that they found in that cave, the ones that are 36 feet long. You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe.
Okay, there's a cave that they found. They uncovered and they pumped the water out of it. And it had gypsum crystals that were, what the fuck were they, 30 meters long?
Huh.
And you haven't seen that cave? Oh my God, you've got to watch
What's
that.
the cave called? Is there a documentary on it? Or
yeah, there is. They go in there.
By the way, did you know that Nick Zentner is doing his Geology 351 class on his YouTube channel? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm watching it. Anyway, this cave, I forget what they call it, but it has these gigantic crystals. And these guys go in there, and you can only stay in there for like 12 minutes or something because it's 136 degrees Fahrenheit. And they have to wear these ice suits. And after 12 minutes, the ice melts, and they start to overheat. And so they're studying this cave. I mean, there's a documentary on it. It's beautiful, quite incredible. But I mean, for those things to form, they basically had to cool extremely slowly in order for those crystals to get that big. And they have other examples where they have like 3-foot crystals, but then this fucker, they had like 40-foot crystals, and it's just something else. Pretty cool.
Well, that's the thing. Like with what my understanding of sedimentary environments is, and it's not perfect. You have to have layers like that are allowed to kind of like dry in a particular, like in a sense, right? You can't have
they don't
either pressure will cause the layer to kind of like flatten out and rigidify, or like the environment has to be such that like the layer is allowed to settle. Like such a chaotic environment like a flood wouldn't like give you like the type of stratification that you'd expect.
Right, it would be very different. You wouldn't get those nice smooth layers like that. Absolutely impossible. And then they Nephilim Free famously says, well, why are they a different color and stuff? And it's like, well, because when, like, I think maybe it was Orge that explained it to us, or somebody, like when rocks, like mountains form, right? And everything's coming down with gravity. So you've got this erosion, and you have one type of deposit that's eroding, and very slowly over time, you'll end up with a certain color or type of sediment. And then it gets down to another layer and it changes. So there's changes over time in these sedimentary layers. And it's pretty easy to visualize if you have enough time for all that to happen. I mean, it happens slowly, not quickly. But anyway, anybody who hasn't watched Nick Zentner, it gives you a whole really good feel of how much time all of this took. It's worth watching. So where are we at?
Any Truths in the live chat, we got to ask him to talk about like genetic entropy with us sometime, because that's
that one, and front-loaded created heterozygosity. Yeah, we got to have him come in and explain that to us, because we don't understand the creationist model. So Stanley, if you could stop by sometime and educate us about how exactly that works. How do we get 1,000 different variations for one particular gene from front-loaded heterozygosity?
In the same genome, no less.
Yeah, in the same location. I don't quite get that.
Yeah, I think it might be a concept that so far only Standing understands.
Perhaps. So what do we have? Have I already visited 54?
So did Danny have something to do with that?
Oh yeah, Danny definitely Danny definitely had a component of that.
Yeah, Danny is definitely their man for the atheist channels.
Particular trigger factor, yeah.
Danny likes poking him in the ass with a fork just for the fun of it. So,
well, and also it was pretty funny that Danny also was confessing to them that apparently I'm the cause of him. Apparently he had viewed himself as an agnostic, but I guess me being such an asshole catalyzed him into finally admitting that he's actually an atheist. I was getting, like I said, I was getting some serious humor about it. This is all in the same conversation as them going on like a 15-minute exposition about how Otangelo specifically, and then me as to an extent as well, only have a high school level education of these topics, and therefore we don't actually understand what we're arguing. But we go out and find these like new things that they're unaware of, that like immutable footing, like they're unaware of. And then like they put forward this argument, and then we have to go do research because we didn't know what it was. And also, and I'm like, so you're saying in the same context that I have inferior knowledge while simultaneously admitting you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. And therefore that means that I don't understand it. I'm like, this is too good. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
I think he's seeing that kind of differently.
Question.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's rather easy to look up something and still not understand it. Right? Like, I read stuff about, like, quantum electrodynamics and stuff like that, and I didn't understand jack shit about it.
Yeah.
Right? I read stuff about, like, aspects of, like, ribosomes and, like, microRNAs and stuff that I don't quite understand. But I can still read it. Like, the fact that I can look up an article on Google doesn't mean I understand the topic.
Right.
Because anybody on the internet has access to Google. And you can read an article and come away like with what they're trying to do, but reading something and understanding it are really different things. And like I said later in that stream, I can tell if somebody understands something by the way they're talking about it.
Yeah. And you can tell that John doesn't know what he's talking about because he never brings up NMD and he doesn't know what the hell it is. And I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to tell him on this stream. He can fucking go Google it and figure it out himself. But I mean, it kind of shoots his whole spiel in the foot, and his whole argument collapses.
Our standpoint isn't that he's knowledgeable and we're not. It's like, what the fuck did he just say? And then we have to go and
research,
look up the actual papers and read them, which he obviously didn't do because they don't say what he says they say.
Right. If you get into ribosomal pausing, that is a deep subject, and that gets right down into the whole, what usually turns out to be the destruction of the mRNA. 99 times out of 100. One time out of 100, there's something weird that happens where ribosomal pausing actually does something useful. And so far, I think they've only found one example for eukaryotes. And there may be some others, and I'm sure there will be others where it becomes important. But for the most part, what happens is ribosomes kind of collide into each other because of this delay. And when they do that, the mRNA gets kicked out and destroyed. And that's the end of that particular little strand. So, I mean, it's a very complex system, and it has 100 different things happening and 1,000 more that we don't know about yet. You know, all these, because it's a stochastic system, right? And it's a bunch of shit bumping into other shit, you know, until shit works or doesn't. So anyway, but yeah, this cherry picking, and he loves to do that in his debates, and he will not give you the paper and he will not give you the reference because he's afraid you'll go and look it up and actually read the conclusion and find out that he's full of shit. So, or
discover that the abstract that he's reading from contradicts him because it doesn't say what he wanted it to say.
Yeah, like the other day when he was reading the abstract and he started stuttering and he refused to read the last line, which obviously contradicted him. So it was funny.
It was priceless.
Priceless. Anyway, I think at 56:25 we have something. Yeah.
I mean, that whole show on Sal doesn't have a brain. I just laughed.
Yeah, they don't use
I said,
brain.
My irony meter blew.
Yeah,
they had a whole show on that, and their whole argument was based on a misrepresentation of something I said. I didn't.
Do you have any idea what he's talking about? What did we? I can't remember.
When did we say he doesn't have a brain? I never said that to him.
I've said that a few times. Well, no, I haven't said it that way. I said that he's full of shit. That's what I said. He uses what knowledge he has to lie for Jesus, and that's the problem I have with Slimy Cell. And he's a really good liar, and he's packaging stuff like James Tour, so it's convincing them, and that is a problem with him. And that's why I really think I do not trust this man. So, I don't know.
Claim to believe a certain thing, they attributed it to me. I'm just like, yeah, you know, a whole hour show on something I didn't even say. And my irony meter blew, and I said, "Speed of sound. You shouldn't be trash talking like that. You know, that just ain't cool because you wouldn't want me to respond to what I think of, you know, of your qualifications."
See, I this is why I just ignore all that drama. Like, I just don't want any part of it. Leave me out of it. I don't want to touch it. I'm not. He did something on me at one point, and I just completely ignored it because I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it. I'll just let him do his piece and.
Agree. And you know what? He and I had an email exchange. I said, "Speed, I'm going to try to avoid mentioning you. You know, let's just kind of avoid each other." But you know, he still has all these shows about me. I'm just like, dude, what up with that? But you know, I try to.
Here's what's up with that. Cell is poison. He's basically poison for which organization is Sanford associated with it? With it's not AIG. I think it's the other one, ICR.
ICR?
Which one?
ICR?
Maybe ICR. But anyway, those guys are putting forth so much poison. And we got to start reviewing my stack of emails because I get 6 emails from those guys a day on new articles that they're putting out. You know, this paleontology problem or this geological problem or, you know, just garbage. And that's why we will continue.
Material?
What's that?
How much of it is repackaged material?
They always manage to pull out new papers. They're always looking at the latest stuff, and they're just continuing to feed the mill. And they're putting out a ton. Like they love going out and getting pop science articles, and then they go from there. And they very seldom. Sometimes they'll dig up a paper and they'll cherry pick a quote or two, but for the most part they use pop science articles like problems with the Big Bang or, you know, any fucking thing that's going on. Any disagreement among scientists, and they delve into it, or any particular thing that the paleontologists are disagreeing on currently, they will do an article on it. But we should go through some of those. Maybe instead of these guys, I don't know. These guys are getting kind of boring. But let's see, where do we go from here? 57.33. Yeah, 57.14. I don't know. I jump ahead to 125. I'm not sure why.
Goodness. Oh my goodness.
There's another one. There's at least one in the field.
You can hoax them. Oh, by the way, I dropped something in chat. Emery and I had a show where we just read a peer-reviewed paper.
There we go.
2016. What's wrong with evolutionary biology? That was a great paper. We couldn't stop laughing through the whole thing.
I've read that paper, and that's the one where they like. Isn't that the one? That may be different. I'm thinking of the. I read the one you're talking about. And I forget if it was this line was in that one or a different one, but they literally said something, quasi paraphrasing of, "Do we actually need to come up with a new form of synthesis?" Like at what point it was basically, "What the heck, guys?" Like every time.
Yeah, that was where him and Emery were just laughing at every paragraph, right?
They were misconstruing shit that it was saying right and left. And of course that's where they revealed to me their extreme paranoid and conspiratorial view of the world, right. And it just certainly skews everything they read.
Well, he gets into it here a little bit, where I think he's suggesting that nobody would show that paper in college or something. But
time we keep coming with these new variations, they fail miserably in terms of like the actual foundational understanding of an explanation for the origination of the novel requirements versus the optimization of existing function. Like it's.
Don't you love when John creates a sentence?
Don't you love when John just like word salads all over you? It just comes all over you. It's a beautiful mess. I mean, it's just.
It is.
He has turned into a complete Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it's like he's gotten worse just in the past 2 or 3 weeks. Like he's starting to. I don't know. It's definitely gotten worse for sure. At least looks like it to me. And he's starting to really throw out a lot of bullshit. I mean, that whole thing with the court stuff and all that. I mean, holy shit. That was kind of all bullshit, but I think he just likes to throw it all out there.
Well, I mean, with John, it's like anything that he doesn't understand sticks.
Yeah.
It sticks like super glue. Like as confusing as quantum mechanics is as confusing as a topic as quantum mechanics is. I've heard a lot of stupid stuff regarding it, and John comes ranks pretty high on the stupid meter. But I don't know if I have to attribute that to him or just because of the fact that quantum mechanics was hard to understand.
Yeah, let's see if we can find the part where he says something that I thought was curious, but we may not find it.
Quick sidebar before I forget this. So SFT is having their global flood conference. Go over and about the.
Hear that? So.
Just make sure to.
Why wouldn't it be fair to throw that in a biology class?
Here we go.
I think.
Go check that out.
Global flood.
But I guess regarding that article, I think. Why wouldn't it be fair to throw that in a biology class?
Why is he suggesting that article would not be thrown into a biology class?
And it would. I mean,
it would. Yeah.
What's the name of the article?
Oh, what the fuck? Do you remember? It was God. I know we have it in the Horseman doc. Do we have it in the?
It's in the Horseman doc. Yeah.
Is it like in the papers named pile of a million papers?
I believe so. I believe so.
Let me see.
Hang on a second here.
But yeah, it certainly should be in any biology class. At least maybe because of the reading level in a college biology class. Just like on that Geology 351 that Nick Zentner's doing, they're basically every week they are reading papers, reviewing the main points it tries to make, and then going out and doing field work to look at the different layers of volcanism volcanism that's gone on, and to identify the different types of rock created from the various layers at various different times. And that's totally appropriate and should be encouraged. And also, problems with evolutionary theory, I do not think any one university is going to try to hide that information, because it talks about the state of the science, and anybody going through college should be very interested in that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. Was it Rudolph? No, that was 1998. So wasn't it a newer paper?
Yeah, keep on watching and I'll find it.
Okay. Yeah, you might have to go back to his. You might have to go back to his video. Yeah, if you Google what is wrong with evolution, it will pop up, because that's what he Googled. So
he actually Googled evolution useless.
Yeah, evolution useless.
And the word useless was not found in that paper. He just happened upon it, but it wasn't about what he thought it was. And never mind. I'm going to quit talking and look for the paper.
Here's another thing too, and this is one point that I will agree with Tor with. Journals, like when they publish papers, do have to sensationalize a little bit.
Yep.
In regards to the fact that when you write a paper about something, no matter what it is, you have to get people to read it. So you have to kind of make things spicy, but not necessarily misleading.
Yeah, and the only opportunity you have to do that is a title, mostly, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have to make sure that the way you've named the paper, or the way you're framing, the way you're trying to pitch this paper, is something that people want to read. Evolution useless paper.
Let's see. I think it was "What is Wrong with Evolution." I think that was the name. I don't know. But anyway, Scott's trying to find it. We could play a little more here and see what happens.
Because people have to think, Sal, and they don't want them to do that.
Yeah. They tell you what to think, not how to think.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And it would, that's the thing that Emery and I had talked about. I said, amongst themselves they'll admit the problems, but they have to put on a certain public face. And so
that's why science is working so well, because they don't tell students how to think; they tell them what to think, right?
And the funny thing is, his Bible doesn't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Is it? Let's see. Was it "What's Wrong with Evolutionary Biology" 2017?
Yep. Who wrote it?
Yeah. Let's see. Welch.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see. What the fuck? Why does it keep disappearing from my drive? Where am I?
I might have to read this, because this could be rather interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there about the controversy with the extended synthesis and a bunch of other stuff. So, I mean, it was a decent paper, and they got like weird shit out of it. They keyed on, any time they would say something like natural selection is a mess or something like that, they kind of went nuts. So we got papers, and we got papers named, and it should be under Welch at the bottom. Whoa. How do I get to the bottom of this thing? It's bottomless. We have a bottomless pit. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Okay. See if I can find it here. Oh, Christ almighty. Wills.
Let's see.
Here we go. Was it 2008? No, it was
2017.
I don't have it. God damn it. Okay, let me look under my stuff. Oh, come on. Pop up, you little devil. Welch. 2017. I got it right here. What's wrong with evolution? Let's see. What's wrong with evolutionary biology? That was the paper.
And the irony of it is, Sal just said, you saw it on screen, they'll tell you what to think, not how to think. And then, well, where did you get this paper? It was publicly accessible from Google.
Yeah.
And so, what point are you trying to make, Sal?
I don't know.
And here's the thing, too. Like, that paper, if I'm not mistaken, was published in a relatively, in a very well-named, relatively well-named journal.
Biological Philosophy, I think it was.
Springer published it, I believe.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, Springer is not a journal to be laughed at. It's a pretty decent journal, like, to get accepted into. So I don't know why you think people would be unwilling to challenge this type of idea. Yeah. Because it's only by challenging our pre-existing conceptions of a paper that we get better theories out of it, and that we make corrections that the current theory doesn't account for.
Okay, I'll link the paper in the description for anybody that wants to look at it. But don't look at it because it'll just shatter you. I mean, you won't believe in evolution at all anymore if you read this. So
yeah, keep it secret so nobody will know about it.
Yeah, don't tell anybody, particularly children. Yep, it's a secret. Okay.
In an obscure journal, they're willing to accept it because they figured no one's going to
obscure journal.
And it's just
was that
obscure journal? Nature. Springer is an obscure journal.
They got really on PubMed.
I would love to email like the editor of the journal and tell them like that a distinguished colleague called their journal, an obscure journal, and see what kind of opinions they'd like to give or corrections.
Yeah,
they'd like to make towards that comment, because that's a rather strong claim. That borderline's almost on slander against a journal like that.
Yeah, and he's pretty much changed his mind on that, because if I recall correctly, when they were going over that paper, he talked about how he's surprised it made it through peer review, and that Dr. Welsh is kind of a bigwig in his university, and that must be why he was able to get away with saying such stuff, which to me is silly. Basically a guy with great standing wrote a paper, it went through peer review, and it points out some of the problems that are going on today in evolutionary biology. Just like there's papers about the crisis in cosmology.
Does he think like there's some kind of witch hunt going on, like for authors that publish these things? I'm
he's
really
thinking
confused.
that most people would not get that kind of material through peer review because of big science, I guess, and that's the way they control scientists and keep them from getting out of line, so that because remember, in his world, there's all these scientists, hundreds and hundreds of them, that are converting to young Earth creationism. They know the truth, but they won't let anybody write about it.
Right.
Apparently, I mean that explains why I can't find any articles on like the extended evolutionary synthesis and critiques being levied against it, and people that are trying to critique it and find like refinements that are needed with the theory. That's man, these scientists are just lying crap, man. They're just so easy to call them out on, what they're not trying to tell us.
Conspiracy.
A lot of scientists have to pay their mortgage. You know what I mean? That controls them.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell did I do with this paper? Okay, let's see what else he has to say.
By accident, ironically, thank God for Google, because that's how I found it. I just Googled the term evolutionary biology useless, and I found that.
And it's paper is pure.
Oh, hey, sidebar, guys. Speaking of like using Google to find like papers on all sorts of interesting topics, so I've got to get another jab in at Speed of Pudding. So earlier they were talking about one of the examples of like this new thing that I've used, right, is translational pausing in protein synthesis, right? And the irony was they were claiming that they haven't been able to find anything on Google about this topic. And I'm just like, okay, so number one, I've got like 4 papers on translational pausing.
Oh, foreskin.
In my Google Drive folder. So,
did we say that we couldn't find any papers on translational pausing? I think what I said was that we couldn't find any more than 1 or 2 instances of ribosomal pausing making a difference in eukaryotes. Now, it does make a difference in prokaryotes, but not that big a difference. So anyway, that's what we said.
So here's the thing. There's a very big difference in there not being like many instances in not being many instances of a phenomenon like translational pausing, and it being a significant phenomenon. So John is trying to make the point that this is something like which is very broad spread, and it might be, right. For all we know, it could be, but there aren't overly many documented there don't appear to be overly many documented cases of it, right? There's a few that relate to eukaryotic biology, but not overly much.
Yeah. And in one of my books here, one of my textbooks, they've got one or two of them, they've got a section on ribosomal pausing. So it's already made it into the textbooks. So it's not that, but it's kind of an obscure little piece that they talk about with the Scheingeld, what the fuck? Oh God, my brain is going to fail me. The Shine G something sequence or particle in prokaryotes. Yes, yeah, that. So anyway, it is in here, but somehow I can't find it in this book. Must be my older book, but it's in the textbooks, and it's been in the textbooks since around 2010. So anyway, so no, it isn't that we couldn't find it, John. It's that we couldn't find it. Papers that said it was as fucking important as you think it is. Okay, moving on.
Well, that's point one. Point two is I used Google. I searched translational pausing and protein synthesis. Then I used the search tool in Google to say past year.
Yeah, and you find about 20 pages now. And in the past year or two, they've done a lot more on it.
And there were like 15 papers for between 2020 and 2021 on.
And they all say that it's still uncertain what effect it has in eukaryotes. I saw that in like three of the current papers that came up for 2019 and 2020. So
on translational pausing, I'm like, and these people are claiming that I make crap up or go find obscure outlier stuff that they can.
Yeah, and if you hunt down the paper source, okay, ribosomal pausing was used by D'Onofrio and Abel, who are famously listed with 46 papers in Answers in Genesis as the scientists that agree with them. So that's where he got it from. So he got ribosomal pausing from his creationist sources. And you can track the lead, if you just follow the scent trail, you go all the way back to that stinky AIG list. So I'm pretty sure that's how it came into his. In fact, he has that Abel paper in his Annoying People document or library.
Never seem to find. I can't. John is so mean. He tells us to go Google it, and then we do, and I can't find anything. And I'm like,
never said that.
How can you not do this? Same thing. There was an atheist on comments talking trash, and I told him to go look up the validation stage of life and like the psychology studies and stuff on it, and like I can't find anything on this. And I'm like, search validation stage of life, and like the very first thing that comes up is about this topic, right? And they said they searched it and couldn't find anything. I'm just like,
what happened to my? How did I get here?
What search tool are you guys using that somehow you're unable to type in the exact same?
Well, I don't know.
Did you Speed? Did you go to? You went way past. You were back at timestamp 56 a little bit ago, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. All right. No, I timestamped a couple of things myself. There was. Go ahead.
Here's a question I have for John, and other people can respond to this in a way that like relates to their own field. What does John consider to be like a common occurrence like for some topic being brought up in a journal, like translation or Watson-Crick base pairing or something like that? Because usually, like within a year, you'll see it referenced like several thousand times.
Yeah.
Not like 10 to 15 times. Because it might be gaining traction, but it's kind of an outlier, right? It's something that a few people are paying attention to within the community, but not overly many are realizing. And you can also cross-reference that by citation index. Yeah. So if you go back like to the past 10 years and kind of accumulate like the citations for papers referenced on papers referencing translational pausing, you can kind of gauge, you can get a relative index for how much people are really caring or really investing like stock into this idea.
Well, it's just now come onto the radar because they found some connection with cancer. Because ribosomal pausing will cause it to kick the ribosome out, or basically the mRNA out, and it'll stop translating. And so it's implicit in some cancer. So in the last 2 years, the number of articles and the interest has increased, but it's increased in a negative manner, in that they're finding that it is a problem. That it mostly results in ribosomal not just pausing, but kicking the mRNA out of the ribosome and destroying it. So there's a whole bunch of that. But it's a complicated field, and it takes a lot of reading to get into it. I'm pretty sure that one researcher could spend their entire life studying nothing but that particular topic. So I don't know if we all have time for that. Okay,
I mean, that's the thing about science. Like, people can study like their entire lifetimes trying to understand this phenomenon of translational pausing or whatever else.
Yeah,
and oftentimes that's the case. Like, it's these things are very, very complicated, and it's very hard to really get a grasp on how much one particular little aspect of biology, or the biology that they're mentioning, really factors into the whole. Because there is a sense where this translational pausing thing, now that it's been related to cancer, probably will be discovered to have more of an influence than it did a few years ago. But nonetheless, this is something John has raised up in response to, as being a response to evolution. So you do have to wonder, in a way, how much does this relate to evolution, or does it relate at all?
Yeah, you are crackling, Immutable.
Okay.
Why are you crackling?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, somebody just brought it up in chat. So. Okay, so I don't have too much else here. I got something at 1:45. Want to look? I was distracted, Immutable, so I missed the last thing you said. Were you done?
Well, what I was saying essentially is that it might be the case that translational pausing is a more common occurrence than we thought.
Yeah,
but it may not have anything to do with evolution at all.
Right.
It could be that this process particularly is just related to, most pertinent in with regard to cancer or something like that. But it has no other relationship to evolution as a process. So there still is an open question about how much it contributes to the theory. And the answer probably is not very much.
Yeah, I think microRNAs or something attached to these signal sequences, and they can effect a translational pause. And because of that, there are a few pathways that have been carved out by natural selection to make something positive of a couple of things. And they used to think that it never happened in eukaryotes, and I think they found one or two examples where it does, but it ain't a big deal. And John's whole point is that, that means that there's additional codes built into the DNA, and that it's more complicated, and that the basically the wobble, in the last nucleotide of the codon doesn't make a difference because ribosomal pausing. So that was her point. That that God's design was perfect, and the code is so obvious. So that is his whole point about ribosomal pausing.
It's weird that they mentioned Washington Crick base pairing, because in the ribosome, and you know this as well, you have non-traditional base pairing like within ribosomes, because the structure that these RNAs adopt to form this complex amalgamation allows three or four nucleotides to interact with each other rather than few to interact like in close proximity.
We're going to be doing a deep dive on ribosomes soon, I think. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there's a lot there. There's a hell of a lot there that that shows you that just looks so much like evolution that it's got to be. I mean, there's some really important stuff in ribosomes.
On ribosomal biogenesis or what?
Basically, yeah, the evolution of ribosomes. There's a lot of information. There's other. I don't want to go into it right now. There's just some things that like I've highlighted in my book and put red marks on that just point at evolution. I mean, you can see it in the structure of this thing. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Yeah, it'll be good, but got to do some work before I get there. So anyway, so we got something at 1:45.
Oh, sidebar. Also,
oh God,
speed of pudding,
speed of pudding sidebar.
Did you watch the Dr. Tour abiogenesis video on chiral-induced spin selectivity?
Yeah, here we go.
I did. It lost me.
Okay,
I have to go back and watch it again.
It's very cool, but it was really cracking me up in Pudding's channel or stream earlier. They were talking about me mentioning this whole deal in one of my debates and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, they were not recognizing the significance of the spin selectivity in relation. They thought I was just arguing about homochirality in general versus the significance of the chiral-induced spin selectivity in relation to the homochiral problem and the reinforcement of it and like how it stands it's a crazy barrier in the whole premise of like.
Okay. So that's why I reached out to you today, Immutable, and asked you for more information about why does this matter and what does it do and why are we concerned?
What is he blathering on about now?
That spin selectivity thing.
Yes, I mean the essential of it is if you have chiral systems, then if you have chiral systems which have a certain handedness to them, then when you're dealing with something like proton transport across a membrane or things like that, you're essentially maximizing entropy because what you're doing is you're making it so that only protons of a certain spin or electrons of a certain spin can move through that membrane.
So that would select for homochirality.
Right. So that selects for molecules that are naturally chiral in nature.
Yeah.
And that have the same handedness instead of preferring like some weird like diastereometric or weird like mixed chiral system.
Yeah, and they're making the point that life could not have happened unless everything was like all in place at the beginning.
And that's just not correct.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's their point, which James Tour has a whole half-hour video on it that I have not watched, but probably should. So there's that. And I only had one other timestamp, and I'm not sure what this one is about. This is way off in the future.
I guess unless Sentinel Apologetics joins, he'll probably shut down the stream. I really should attend to Mom and Emery. We'll talk again. I wanted to say I'm really glad you've joined.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything here. That was just where I think somebody left or something. So anyway, we're done with that. And I'm kind of burnt out.
We've been going for a while.
Yeah, so I want to kind of quit for the day. Got to go get some rest.
Yep.
So let's shoot it in the foot or the head.
Whatever.
We're going to shoot it in the head. So anyway, another abrupt end. Anybody have anything?
I found some papers on the extended evolutionary synthesis if you guys want to read some of them.
Oh, hell yeah. Send them along. I always love to read that shit. Okay. And we should take a look again at that paper. Maybe we should do that paper,
Which one?
On paper trails? That one on problems with evolutionary biology.
Maybe.
Yeah, we might. I mean, it might be a real easy thing that we can cover in 1 hour, I think. So
maybe. How many pages is it?
There's a few.
Minus references?
Not that many. Well, yeah, there's a few. I've got highlights already. 2, 3.
Find it. Here's the first one I found.
Well, it can certainly be a jumping off point for discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here to be worth looking at. So let's take a look at it. We'll plan. Maybe we can do that this week. Well, take a look at the paper. It's now in the Horseman Papers Named drive. So it's Welch 2017 for anybody that wants it. So, okay, guys, we're out. We're going to end.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodbye, cruel world. Oh my God, Frank on Shameless last night. Anybody see that?
No.
It was a goodbye, cruel world.